Friends, gamers, thinkers, welcome back to Tales of Praxis, Friday evening edition. I am your host, Aaron Suduko, the founder of With a Terrible Fate, your online publication and home for thinking every one of the most robust and analytically rigorous thoughts about what video game stories are, why they matter, how they work, and why they're worth all of the love and passion that we gamers put into them. I'm delighted to be opening the weekend with you on another stream of Tales of Praxis, the series that I've been running for the site for the last few months. My computer thought I was talking to it. Yes, good evening, Grail. Pleasure to have you here. You beat me here tonight. For those, unlike Grail, who might just be finding Tales of Praxis, it's a combination of streaming and written articles for With a Terrible Fate, focused solely on the Tales of Bandai Namco's Tales series of JRPGs, their language as works of storytelling and also their impact on video games more broadly. If it seems like between my being a few minutes late and my forgetting the name of Namco's Tales series, I'm a little frazzled, it's not entirely unrelated to the series. This is actually also a publication day, the first written companion article for Tales of Praxis that I've published in a couple months. The last one was an article digging deep into the influence of Kabbalah on Tales of the Abyss back in May. And I'd been threatening for quite a while to write something about our Tales of Symphonia stream, which kicked off the whole Tales of Praxis series, and I hadn't been able to get it off my desk. I finally did today. So it is called, quite simply, Tales of Symphonia, What Regal Bryant Taught Me. I will go ahead and share it in the chat for anyone who might be interested in checking it out. Oh, Grail, I'm so glad you're reading through it. Once you're done, I will be definitely interested if you have thoughts, feelings, questions, anything you want to talk about. I said that today I would be happy to chat through any of it on the stream. Obviously, I'm happy to chat through any of this stuff on any stream, and it occurred to me that it might be a little ambitious to suppose that a lot of people read it today when it just came out today. But I had a few thoughts on it, so I figured without too many spoilers for the article as such, I would talk through a few things that have been on my mind, might be interesting food for thought, especially for the people who are interested in thinking through the Tales games, not just as a streaming exercise, as a book club, but also from the analytical side for the articles. So I wanted to give a little bit more of that context. Yeah, magnetically drawn to Regal. I had something in a first draft of this where I said something about, like, I was trying to decode my attraction to Kratos, or something that is similar to what you were saying, sounded very different when you wrote it down versus how it sounded in my head. So I had to edit it more than once for stuff like that. I don't know what that tells you about me or about these games, but I think it says something. This is also it occurred to me that in some ways, this is really the first proper companion article to the Tales of Praxis stream, which was nice to think about, because I wrote something when we first started out about Tales of Symphonia. Like I said, I wrote that article about Tales of the Abyss, but the Tales of the Abyss article was very much just theoretical, looking at the structure of the game, absent any of my direct experiences from my most recent playthrough of it. The first Tales of Symphonia article, it was a little bit based on my playthrough of the game on stream, but it was mostly just focused in and thinking about a moment in the game that didn't really have anything to do with my decisions, namely when Sheena stands up right before the end of the first act and tells the party, I'm from another world, and that's how they learn about Tethe'ala. So this was the first one where I really wanted to dig in and think through something that was totally particular to my experience on the stream, this crazy experience I had where I was thinking that I was going after Kratos being the prioritized relationship in Tales of Symphonia, and then actually I ended up focusing on Regal instead. And so I wanted to think about, how did that happen? Why was that so interesting to me? And what was it that I kind of ended up discovering about Regal and ultimately even Kratos through that experience? So that was what the article is about in broad strokes. Definitely check it out if you have a chance. Interested to hear, especially what people who are maybe there for the stream of Tales of Symphonia think. To give a little bit of background about the article, which I said might be interesting, especially if you're interested in digging further into Tales of Praxis, it was a long and kind of interesting adventure to create it. It's not that long of an article by my standards of analysis and article length, but I played through the Tales of Symphonia stream 4 months ago, which it was kind of crazy for me to look back and see how much time had passed since then, because it doesn't feel like that long. And then I started, technically speaking, working on this article 3 months ago. But really, for the longest time, it was just that nugget of my experience on the stream where I'd been trying to make Kratos Lloyd's #1 relationship bond, but then it ended up being Regal instead. And I felt like that was interesting, but I wasn't quite sure why. So I wrote down basically the first couple of paragraphs just talking about how that happened on the stream and how I was surprised by it. And I kind of stalled there from May to June just with the nugget of the idea. And, there are a number of reasons why I kind of slowed down. One, like I talked about on the stream before, was that I was really engaged in diving back into and actually playing these games, some of them for the first time, some of them for the first time in quite a while. And I wanted to absorb those playthroughs. But then I appreciate you saying that things like this take time, Grail, and thank you for that. I think in this case, I want to be a little more productive in regularly publishing these. And I also think it was interesting for me to look back on why it was the case, because I think for me, the reason that it really stalled was, interestingly enough, because I'd had this experience with the game on stream, and I felt like it was telling me something about my deeper experiences or feelings with Tales of Symphonia, but I wasn't quite sure what that was. And so I didn't want to just publish something saying, hey, I was trying to get Kratos, I got Regal. Isn't that weird? Because I felt like, A, that wouldn't be that interesting, and B, it also didn't really do justice to my experience in why I was being drawn to it. And so in the same way, I kind of bully people with my encouragement on stream, where I say, like, if you like something, ask yourself why you like it, and don't be afraid to dig a little deeper. That's what I was trying to do. And I think actually, in this case, that's a really good testament to the whole conceit of the Tales of Praxis series, where we're playing through all of the Tales games in order to get a sense of how they're in conversation with one another. Because Grail, since I know you're on the stream, I know you and I have talked in the past about how cool it would be to do some particular like comparative analyses between the different Tales games. I'm planning on doing those. Stay tuned for that. But also all the time on the stream, as we've been going through Tales of Berseria, for instance, here, we've been comparing it back to Systeria, even to Tales of the Abyss sometimes, Tales of Symphonia, all of these other games in order to better understand them. And I think a big part of what it was that got me over the hump with understanding this Regal Kratos relationship and what it was saying about my experience as a player was nothing to do with Symphonia per se, but was actually sitting down and playing and thinking about some of the other games that were using the same storytelling language in a different context and in a different but related sense. So if you go through the article, you'll see that a lot of the substance of it and these pieces of connective tissue that I ended up creating between my experience and broader ideas of theme in Tales of Symphonia are things like the idea of not only seeing the story of a game through a particular perspective, like the eyes of a particular character, but actually having your understanding of a certain character in a party colored by a different character. So I talk, for instance, about how when I was a kid, I didn't really realize it, but I was always focused on Lloyd in Tales of Symphonia. And even though I paid attention to the other characters, they were always colored first and foremost by my perspective on him. I think a big part of what it was that surfaced my thinking about that idea of how our perspective on characters is mediated was actually playing through first Tales of Destiny, where you get something that is very similarly sketched out in terms of the relationship that the Swordians have with their quest that they're trying to finish, and the party members who are, on the one hand, using the Swordians as tools, on the other hand, kind of being used as tools by the Swordians in order to finish out this ancient war once and for all. So there's a lot of playing with who's in control of the perspective and the driver's seat and what's the right way to see the story in that game. And then to dive into something like Tales of Vesperia, where we've been talking around this on the last few streams. Hopefully we'll have occasion to talk about it more directly in the near future. But the idea that in some senses, Tales of Vesperia is almost like an anti-JRPG because all of the party members have very distinctive perspectives and goals and missions that go in different directions. And so it's hard to unify the party around a singular purpose or narrative in the way that you get in something like Tales of Symphonia, especially with something like, as Grail and I have talked about on the last couple streams, the fact that when you go to the final confrontation with the boss, you get radically different scenes and color to that final boss fight based on which character is the leader in the party, also got me thinking about this idea of what factors control the perspective through which we engage with a JRPG's story, and how can the Tales games play with that. And then, of course, another big part of the article has to do with what it means to basically interpret our actions in the world, invent new concepts, create our own kind of symbolism in order to turn something that might be a punishment, like Regal's handcuffs, into something that might empower us to create a better future, like Regal's handcuffs, after he talks with Alicia at her grave. That is all, as viewers of the stream will know, a big part of what we talked about when we were discussing Tales of Symphonia, this idea of the characters trying to understand what is malevolence, what does that concept actually mean, how does that connect up with individual actions in the world, and then from the ideas of malevolence and purity, how can we build to the next level of actual moral content of actions? A lot of stuff in the same vein. So I think even though I don't call out those other Tales games in this article, their influence, especially for people who have been watching the stream, is very heavily felt, and the article wouldn't have come together in the way that it did without having played those. I think another thing that I just wanted to call out as we dive back into Tales of Berseria here, in terms of the whole ethos of Tales of Praxis, we've talked about this before. The idea of it being called Tales of Praxis is that I'm really interested not just in thinking about the storytelling language of these games, but also about how it is that they tell stories that make meaning out of the player's agency in them, and the player's choices and actions and interactions with the game beyond just whatever it is that the party members decide to do. That's a big part of what I'm talking about in the article, in terms of how this idea of empowering ourselves through the interpretation of our actions rather than focusing on merely the consequences of our actions can be applied equally to what it is the characters like Regal are doing, and also actually what it is that we as players are doing as we make these different decisions in the game that shape Lloyd's relationships in ways that we don't always expect or understand, but we can go back to and interpret after the fact, in cases like talking about the game or doing a New Game Plus, or even writing an article of the kind that I just published about it. And I think it's a good example of what it is to think about that player agency, because I don't know if you all ever experienced this when you're out in the wild gaming or talking about gaming, but I think for some people there's this idea that either there's a game that has, radically divergent narrative outcomes based on the choices you make as a player, something like a Mass Effect or a Dishonored, or even Elden Ring, something like that. And if the player doesn't have that kind of direct influence on the outcome of a plot to that level of severity, then the game is basically just an interactive movie or a hallway simulator, or insert whatever term you prefer here, right? And I think that's a really sad misconception of all the different ways in which games can tell really cool and interesting stories and create themes based on the way that the player is interacting with it, even, and maybe even especially in cases where the stories are relatively linear as opposed to non-linear or open world or whatever you want to call it. And I think Tales of Symphonia is a great way to dive into that as well. It's not a game where there are radically different narrative outcomes. There are different colors to the narrative and a lot of different nuances based on the decisions that the player makes. But more so than any particular choice, the way in which I think it creates a lot of its magic in the story that it's telling, and why a lot of players come back to it over and over again with many different playthroughs, is because it encourages them to think about their very act of engaging with the world to create a story in these special, really interesting and unusual ways. So hopefully in that way, the article can be a bit of a model for the way in which we want to think about player agency and engagement in all the Tales games as we continue on through Tales of Praxis. And hopefully it's also a good window into why I think the Tales games in particular are really, really sophisticated in terms of how it is that they make stories out of player action, even without having a lot of radical choices, as you might consider them to be in other games. Looking at my notes, I want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh yeah, one other nice thought. I've been talking with a few people about just Tales of Symphonia in general since I've published this, and I think something that's so cool is, I really believe it's the case. You can play through this game any number of times. and you can see it through the eyes of different characters, and that can really change the message that you take from the story, the themes that are highlighted to you, and to my point about your experience with the story being mediated not just by a particular character, but also by by how the characters see one another. I think you can get really interesting insights based on asking, okay, how is it that I'm seeing these characters, and which character am I prioritizing relative to that? So in the case of the article that I wrote, it was how I was able to think about Kratos differently when I was seeing him through the perspective of my analysis of Regal. And I think you could apply a similar kind of analysis to the game in terms of any number of other character combinations. So I was thinking, before this, like, what if we were to do an entire analysis, like analyzing Berseria, but through the eyes of Colette, right? Someone else who has kind of lost her soul, suffered at the hands of Crucius without really understanding why. All of that totally colors Berseria differently, even for me, just thinking about it for a couple minutes. We could think about Sheena through the eyes of Rain, right? Someone who also comes from Tetheala, was distanced or alienated from their homeland for a variety of reasons, and is trying in her own way to find her way back to it. Sheena at the beginning of the game through trying to assassinate the Chosen One of Sylvarant's world. Rain through this kind of sublimated obsession with ruins, trying to almost subconsciously find her way back to the otherworldly gate in order to get home. So I think it's just a great game, right? And it's a game with so many different layers of meaning available to you and grounded in the text of the game, if only you decide to play it and play it again and think about the ways in which your experiences relate to one another. So it was really fun and rewarding to dive back into all of that for this article. And hopefully it'll spur a lot of conversations about Symphonia in the time to come on the stream and off the stream. And it's definitely got me jazzed to write about a number of other things. So for those who are watching the stream, I will also tease, I already have a fix on what I'm pretty sure I'm going to write about next, hopefully with a much shorter delay between articles than the last one. I'm thinking, speaking of comparative studies, Grail, I want to look at Tales of Destiny in combination with Tales of Vesperia and have a conversation between them. I think in really interesting ways, they complement each other because they both, I would say, deal with deflationary views on destiny, where characters who think that they have a fated outcome in the world are really in charge of doing things for whatever reasons that they want to. But they almost tell anti-parallel stories where Tales of Destiny is all about basically preventing the entire world order from being upended by Kronos and the Etherians, whereas Tales of Vesperia, at the end of the day, is about the party banding together to stop someone from returning the world to its natural state in the antagonist's eyes. So I think that'll be fun to think about, and that's what I'm going to be working on next in the analytic workshop outside of the stream. That's what I had to say. I hope that you check out the article. I hope you like it. Like I said, I am happy to discuss it for people who have read it yet. And before I dive into Berseria, I've seen comments coming in. I didn't want to trip myself up, but let me catch up with them now real quick before we settle into some streaming and gameplay for the evening. Oh, Pink Moon Echo, welcome back. It's a delight to have you back. We've missed you. I was missing you in the chat, at least. It's so nice to see you having found your way back here. I hope you enjoy what we're up to, and I hope you check out the article if you haven't yet. Interested in seeing what you think. Yeah, I totally understand being busy. God knows I've been there. That's another part of why it took me so long to get this last article out. So don't worry about that at all. It's a pleasure to see you back here. It's an interesting question about would you call Berseria an anti-JRPG? My feeling is, so we're moving into Act 2 now, right? Velvet has had her first ill-fated confrontation with Artorias, and we've already been thinking a lot about the ways in which Berseria kind of subverts or challenges our expectations of JRPGs and stories in general, because we have a party of what are maybe villains, maybe anti-heroes. It's yet to be determined what the best way to see them is. It would be an interesting question to ask whether it's an anti-JRPG, not least of which because Grail and I have been having a lot of fun arguing with each other and trying to figure out, like, what a JRPG even is in the modern age. And to call something an anti-JRPG kind of presupposes that we have a good working definition of what a JRPG is. So I'm sure as we continue on here, we'll get a lot of content to get the gears turning a bit more about that, which will be interesting to see and talk about. So it's a good question for us to keep in mind. Okay, so Grail's thought right now is no, it's not an anti-JRPG, which is to say it's a JRPG. I think we need some firmer definitions as we go on here. So maybe we can argue about what we mean about a JRPG such that it could be an anti-JRPG as we continue to progress. Oh, but y'all are already starting to argue about it, so you don't need help from me. All right. Well, it seems like we're already digging into Berseria, which is great because that's going to be the content of the majority of the stream here, now that I've talked through the article a little bit. Yeah, as I said, it is just release day now, especially for people who care enough to be watching the stream live or watching it on YouTube or engaging with our live book club. I hope you do get a chance to check out the article on Tales of Symphonia. It was the game that inspired me to start Tales of Praxis in the first place. It was my first video game story as a kid that inspired me to think about games and make it an intellectual focus of mine. And I think it's safe to say that even though it is now 2 decades old, we will never run out of new and genuinely interesting things to say about it and ways to read it, which is great. I mean, people have been talking and thinking about it forever, but I still felt in whatever little way that I was able to make a contribution, because so much of games are about our personal experience with it, and so much of putting language to our personal experience with games is giving other people new frameworks through which to understand and play and experience them and have new experiences with it, which is a big part of the ethos of With a Terrible Fate, and also a big part of what this article is about. So, see, it's all connected. I don't think I could have a better segue than that back into the streaming content. And Tales of Berseria. No, Grail, I'm just giving you crap. When I say arguing, it's in a very playful way. Another thing that we've been talking about over the last few streams is just reveling in how great, frankly, the culture that With a Terrible Fate has cultivated is. And I will not rest on my laurels or toot our own horn too hard. But I do think that it's a special kind of conversational but principled conversational atmosphere that we've been cultivating in the chat as we go on here. Hopefully, that resonates with the other content you see on With a Terrible Fate, whether that's written content or podcasts or the lectures like the kind we'll be giving at PAX West over Labor Day weekend. So it's all in good fun and for the sake of new ways of seeing and analyzing this all. Yes, debate is another great word. Spirited conversation is maybe another good way of putting it. I'm trying to think of synonyms now. But yes, so check out the article. Like I said, I'll be happy to, if people read it and then have questions or thoughts or want to talk about it. It's not like it exists on release day and then it's over. Quite the opposite. So if we want to talk about it next week, that is awesome too. But for the time being, especially for those who missed it, such as Pink Moon Neko, not to call you out, my friend, but to give us a quick update. Like I said, we played through the end of the first act, which pretty much concluded with Velvet getting her first attempt at the revenge she's been thinking about and surviving off of and trying to realize for the last 3 years. We escaped from the Abbey, which we infiltrated to try to assassinate the High Priest, who was in charge of the Nectar drug ring in the capital and elsewhere. We found out that the Abbey is keeping this enormous demon captive for reasons unknown. Then Velvet was able to recruit the help of 4 greater Malakim, including our old friend Zavid, who has reappeared, somehow connected with the disappearance of Ifrid. We're not quite sure how yet, in order to penetrate the new temple that is being built for Inominat, the Malik whom Artorias has tethered and is drawing power from and is passing off in one way or another as the god of the Abbey and basically the de facto world religion that is now subsuming everything else in the world. Velvet and friends fought their best against Artorias. It wasn't enough. As Grail said at the time, the heroes party then rushed in, all of the other exorcists.
I couldn't find any results.
Oh my god, all of my machines are listening to me tonight. I had to stop the one on my MacBook as well a moment ago. I'm not going to call her out by name because she might start listening again. So we did that. The exorcist showed up, Teresa and Oscar and Melchior, the one responsible for the spiriting away of Ifrid, as best as we can understand it. Then Laphicet was able, through reasons unclear to us, to basically spirit the party away to safety by kind of intuitively opening this void into an earth pulse. Laphicet was at risk of becoming a demon, and Eleanor showed up because she also jumped through the portal in pursuit of the party and offered to tether Laphicet. That culminated in a duel between Velvet and Eleanor, basically for dominance over who got to be the boss. That's maybe one of those things like what I said about Regal Grail that sounds a little different out loud as I'm saying it. But in this case, it resulted in Velvet beating Eleanor after I lost to her once, which means that Eleanor is now, at least for the time being, acquiescing to go along with the party, listen to Velvet, and bring Laphicet along in the bargain, who is now bound to her, but still hopefully freer than he would be if he were tethered to any other exorcist in the Abbey, and who seems to be uncovering some new powers as Velvet is uncovering some new dimensions to her personality and inner life, as she's thinking not just about revenge, but now increasingly also about wanting to protect Laphicet, this Malik on whom she's clearly projecting her feelings about her brother, Laphicet. So we finished that duel, and now I think we're going to have some conversations with the party members and figure out what the heck is next in this crazy journey of revenge. I'll catch up on messages quickly, and then we will dive in here. Congrats on beating that boss, Grail. I know that was giving you trouble. Although I will always remind everyone it is Grail's fault because Grail is doing the nutty challenge run of his own design from hell. That would make a Nuzlocke in Pokemon even look easy, comparatively speaking. So congratulations to you, my friend. That dog. Oh, we have in-jokes now. I love it. All right, dear friends. Well, excited to be back with you. Excited to have new content of all kinds in the Tales of Praxis ecosystem. Let's dive back into Berseria and see how we feel about the second act as things ramp up here. Welcome to Tales of Praxis. You know why you came here. It's to see the outcome of the expedition. Oh, we got more wins than losses. It's the first time in a minute that's happened. Lunar Eclipse Tears. I like that item. And a new recipe. My dog Evie wants to remind you all that she is also a key recurring character in the Tales of Praxis stream. So she says hello. Oh, thank you, Grail. What new word did you learn? My goal is not vocabulary, but if I can help, I'll take it. Inchoate. Yeah, that's a philosophy term. That's basically a catch-all term for, hey, I have this idea. I think it's something, but I don't quite know how to define what it is or really talk about it in a rigorous way yet. Think of it as an organism that is just developing. Like a fetus or something, I guess.
Man, Artorias and Innominat. Either one of them's a force to be reckoned with.
Then why do you look so happy?
Because I'm still alive. And if I'm alive, I can fight.
You're certainly optimistic.
That's just the sort of demon I am. What about you, though? You gonna call that whole revenge thing off?
If only. That's just the sort of demon I'm not.
Then we need to find a way to beat them. You can mope after you're dead.
You're still going to hell?
Yeah, After all, I wouldn't be here if Laphicet hadn't saved my life. Surely you know me by now. I might not look it, but duty and honor flow through my veins.
Yeah, he gets you, huh, Grail? Duty and honor flow through your veins as well. I'll say another thing. I think a big part of why I'm doing the Tales of Praxis series and why these games have stuck with me and invited replays the way they have over the years is I think that it's not just that they express messages and represent themes through the actions that you take in them as a player, but it's also that so many of those themes, I think, are deeply and interestingly therapeutic. For instance, kind of the take-home message of that article I published today, among other things, is basically, I think Tales of Symphonia is very good at saying at the end of the day, what matters isn't the actions that you take in the world or the effects that they have. What matters and actually empowers you to act better in the future and create better outcomes is how you choose to interpret those actions and what your past means to you. I think that's what Regal does. I think that's what Kratos ends up doing. I think that's what we end up doing as we play the game. And I think there is something that's just healthy and universally right about that, where so often, as Tales of Symphonia shows us, we don't always know exactly what's going to come from any one of our actions, but we are always in control of how we think about them and develop a self-concept and even motives for future actions based on that past. So not letting go of the past, but using it through a particular interpretive lens in order to achieve better ends and act as a more empowered agent, which is just, I mean, I think that's advice we could all take even outside of video games, and my gut is telling me that that kind of theming is something that you see throughout basically all of the Tales games.
A demon, a Moloch, a witch, and now an exorcist. We've turned into a real band of misfits.
I didn't have any other choice.
There's a certain beauty to an unadulterated fight,
Yeah, I know.
Grail. A battle for honor. You know,
Laphicet.
I respect
Now
that
we know
trope.
the full extent of Inominat's strength. We need that boy more than ever.
Do you think Inominat really is an Empyrean?
You got me, but I do know this. Whatever he is, he's no ordinary Moloch, and the Abbey intends on using that power. To what end, I couldn't say.
If we're going to win this, we need to uncover Inominat's true nature and the Abbey's secret goals.
Indeed. At the very least, I think we can safely assume that Ifrid's disappearance is part of their scheme.
He is at the center of most schemes in the
Extract some
Tales games.
information out of that Eleanor woman as well.
Agreed, but no torture. I'm not shattering our only vessel.
Yeah, I get that. Given the pact they share, if Eleanor goes down, Laphicet becomes a demon, right?
What? No one told me that.
That's just how it is between Moloch and Vessel. I know she's a threat, but we need to keep her close for the time being.
Well, we sure are in it deep now.
I forgot that's how it works. So it's like, what, that's like Iron Man core rules, right? Where if Tony Stark takes the little nuclear generator or whatever it is out of his chest, the shrapnel gets him and he dies right away. That's right? I take everything I know about Tales and imagine the opposite of that. That's how much I know about Marvel. I have like the passing ability to reference certain characters and that's it, because the MCU doesn't quite do it for me, but I think that's a good analogy. I don't think Ifrid is in Abyss at all, Grail, unless he shows up in some corner of Namco Banda Island or something. I think what they do instead is the Dark Wings are sort of pirate-esque. So I think that's the way they sort of shoehorn in similar stuff, but I don't think like a named character Ifrid is in Tales of the Abyss. Like one of the Dark Wings has a pirate hat, for instance.
I'll look after Madame Eleanor. You know, I just remembered. After Miss Mogilou and I made our pact, she couldn't stop sneezing and sniffling for months. That happened right when spring was starting.
All right. Maybe the rest of the gang is in. the other room. Oh my god, it's so gross. Like, I know we have a million of these already, but I can't see one on screen and not go out of my way to get it. Especially, I think, because I live in shame after that stream a few times ago when Pink Moon Echo, I think it was you, called me out for, like, totally missing a few of them in a town or dungeon or something. Okay, other direction. Is that what you call it, a skill issue? Oh, the last thing I'll say about my article, and then I'll really shut up because I understand I'm stopping every 5 seconds. But I guess that's what I do anyway, right? So you regulars are probably used to it at this point. I think the thing that I didn't shout out when I published it, because I didn't want this to be the focus, was it also was rewarding to me spending that long trying to figure it out, because I ended up stumbling into a way of appreciating and reading Tales of Symphonia, Dawn of the New World, that I think is totally consistent with Tales of Symphonia and extends a lot of its core themes in really cool and meaningful ways, which was really fun for me to unexpectedly find, because even after the stream, I continued to feel a little bit like it didn't quite fit with Symphonia, and now after working through that article, I definitely feel like, yeah, maybe there are reasons to not like it as a direct follow-up, but I think it definitely says something pretty well defined directly in conversation with and as an extension of Tales of Symphonia. And I think, especially once I read Regal in the way that I did in this analysis, it was not surprising to me that Regal took such a spotlight in Dawn of the New World. I don't think that's on accident, because I think the difference between how he sees and views himself and how we as people who have played Symphonia view him versus how the Vanguard and Brute especially view him says a lot about what it is that people still have to overcome in Dawn of the New World, that we as the players and party from Symphonia are actually in a position to help them overcome and achieve progress beyond the world that was created at the end of Tales of Symphonia. So there you go. Sometimes analysis helps you appreciate old games in fresh ways. I don't know if self-awareness makes it worse or better, Grail. Maybe for you it makes it better, and so I appreciate that you appreciate that, but I feel like if I could be blissfully ignorant of my own quirks, it might be a happier existence. But maybe that itself is a form of self-delusion. God damn it! And here I thought I could go directly to Laphicet. No, it's never that simple. This area, I feel like, is one that was very directly in Tales of Zestiria. Does it tell us where we are right now? Brigid Ravine. This is my problem. My memory with names is not as great as I would like it to be to know whether that was literally the name of the area outside of the wind trial. This reminds me of the field area outside of that.
Hey,
oh my god.
Don't overwork yourself.
I'm sorry.
Why are you apologizing?
That's a fair point,
Isn't it
Grail.
obvious? I
Better to know.
disobeyed
Then you can lean into it and make it a joke.
Don't sweat it. I'm still alive thanks to you.
I didn't want to see you die. That's why I did that. To save you.
I'm sorry too. Acting the way I did. Treating you like an object.
When I came with you, that was my own choice. You gave me the freedom to choose.
And what would you choose now? We only have more troubles ahead.
You're still going to fight, aren't you?
Well, look, if you don't get a respite between acts, right? When are you going to get it, Grail?
Yeah, I can't stop now.
I think it is. I was thinking about this too. I'm going to stop apologizing for when I stop because it's a Friday night. You're right. This is just part of what the stream is, so that's okay. But I was thinking more about what we've been saying in terms of the music and the way it oscillates and the different tonal palette. I think beyond the fact that it creates a nice breather and a very intense story, I do think, like, if you listen to this music here, for instance, it's very, I would say, like, wistful and thoughtful and, like you say, Grail, peaceful, and also just, broadly speaking, emotional. And I think that's a really nice way to show with the musical palette what so much of the game is about and beating you over the head with this idea of emotion versus reason. Because notice it's when the party that's basically in defense of emotion is on their own, not under the oppressive thumb of the Abbey, when you have the conceptual space to have this more relaxing and emotional music. Whereas, where were we right before this? We were at the Shrine of Innominat, where it's, you know, the new seat of the Abbey's power, and you had almost the antithesis of this music, very overbearing and intense, and almost not giving you enough space to feel whatever it is you're feeling or be in touch with your inner life. So I think the music does a great job of calling those themes out and adding to them. Yeah, solemn, another great word for a pink moon, Neko.
I see.
Anyway, it's not like I have any idea where we are now.
That's a good point.
Ahaha! But an object misused is one thing. A person misused is quite another.
What's your point?
What's your point, is what I want to know. Not only did you blow the whole revenge thing, you didn't even leave a scratch. Do you have any plan on where to go from here?
I'll admit it. The Nominat's power is far beyond what I could ever have imagined. But I'll never give up. No matter how many times I have to try, I'll devour them all.
Bet you 100 gold you break first.
Huh?
You heard me. 100 gold says that you give up. I lost a bet with Rokurou and you had to go and survive.
Someone's got to play that role, right, Pink Moon Echo?
I'm just looking to come out on top.
Whatever. Fine.
Oh, then it looks like we have a bet. There might be some fun in me sticking around after all. Not that I much care how it all turns out. I'm just looking to kill time.
Grail, I can't get it out of my head now that we talked about it last time. There's so much Zelos in Magilu in terms of her, like, artifice and exterior that's kind of all jokey and laissez-faire and I don't care about anything, but so much emotion and clear investment just below that surface. I think that's a really great way of reading her.
I've got something that might help with Innominat.
Oh. Is this that book you took from the villa?
It is. Look closely at the crest on the
Oh, same as the one the Abbey was using.
The temple. Does that book say anything about Innominat?
Yes, but I can't read it. It's written in the ancient tongue.
Oh, don't cry.
Get a time portal. Call
My
Saray.
friend Grimoire might be able to decipher that for you.
Really?
What a name for someone who could decipher a
Maybe
book.
not. She'd have to take a look first.
Well, where is she? Your friend, I mean.
No idea. The last letter I got from her was sent from Isolde down in Southgand.
Not much to work with here.
True, but I'll have fun watching you try.
Oh, I'll find her. Don't you worry about that.
In the ancient tongue!
Spirit, don't give up just yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Yes, inside
observation,
these
Grail.
ruins. You're still weak.
I think the music sets a lot of the tone of that too, if I'm being honest. You know, the music creates a background for how you hear the words in a monologue like that. I was thinking about this too, the way they were talking about, you know, Velvet apologizing to Laphicet for using him as an object. I wonder whether that's a theme that comes up in every Tales game. If not, it's a super common one. 'Cause, I mean, you have X-spheres as the literal objectification of people in Tales of Symphonia. The Centurion cores kind of in Dawn of the New World. Replicas are so frequently objectified in Tales of the Abyss. You have the Swordians in Tales of Destiny. You have the objectification of the Seraphim in Tales of Zestiria. You have I don't know about the objectification of it. Well, kind of, because I was going to say the objectification of Estelle in Tales of Vesperia, but it's kind of the objectification of the Children of the Full Moon with the history you get about the rest of their people and how they kind of objectified themselves in the past history of the world. So maybe that's something worth thinking about as we continue on, kind of what the different games have to say about that similar theme. That might be a cool way of getting some traction into how they're similar and different. Oh yeah, we said Estelle at the same time, Grail. Great minds. Great minds. Yeah, we spoke with everyone, right? Let's do it. You can't stay awake forever, if there's one thing JRPGs taught me. Yeah, she's a good one.
Of all the things, a damned demon watching over me.
Sophie and Richard in Tales of Graces.
Let this happen. I'm such a disgrace.
Obviously, Alphen and Shion in Tales of Arise. Might be able to knock it off in every single one. Or at least keep track of it as we continue on in Tales of Praxis.
This is all I can do. Forgive me, Lord Artorias.
Man, I forgot there's this whole little subplot of Eleanor trying to kill herself more than once in order to cope. That's pretty dark and stark, even for a Tales game.
Melchior to check out the Earth Pulse. And what a strange sight does he find?
My lord, I have failed.
Yeah, more reason for me to find a way to play Innocence at some point, Grail.
The Shepherd has a special mission for you.
A special mission?
You are to protect the Moloch Laphicet and bring him to the Logris Abbey headquarters.
Persona! Oh no!
Classified, not to be shared with even the legates.
Protect the Moloch and bring him to the capital then?
With the utmost secrecy. Your becoming his vessel is in fact quite fortunate.
Maybe so. But with me as his vessel, the Moloch may interfere.
This Moloch may have his own will, but he can be manipulated. Do whatever it takes to get the job done, Eleanor. You act under my full authorization.
Even were it to mean obeying the orders of a demon? But, my lord, what Moloch could possibly be that valuable?
Obviously,
Are you safe?
Laphicet. Were you not paying attention, Eleanor?
Shame is only a fleeting emotion. It is will and reason that ultimately prevail in the face of calamity. My lord, I live to serve the principles of your teachings.
The Earth Pulse will soon close. From here on, you must use your own discretion to execute your mission.
Yeah, I think that could be an interesting theme to keep track of throughout the games as well, Grail. Like how the different parties in these different worlds think about traitors and how they treat them. That's such a big part of Tales of Symphonia, speaking of that. And as you say, it's an interesting way in which, like, even the notion of a traitor is kind of subverted here, since, as you say, it's so obvious that the exorcist among demons would be the traitor, like almost by definition. So it's a bit of an anti-twist in that regard. And I know I've mentioned this on the stream before, but in something like Vesperia, right, where Raven is the one who betrays the party, and he's also, from the first time he meets the party, very obviously going to be the traitor, but that's kind of the point, because his betrayal is like not the point of Raven, even though that's how it's set up. So it could be interesting, similar to the theme about objectification, to trace the way that different games have things to say about traitors and trust.
How are you feeling?
I'm fine.
Super normal.
Don't try anything like that again. Pain is scary, right? I'm alright. No more running away. I'm Laphicet. It's good to finally meet you properly, Eleanor. Yeah, likewise.
Don't worry. If you try running, you won't get far. Once I've eaten your arms and legs, I merely need you alive to act as his vessel. Nothing more.
That won't be necessary. I swore an oath.
Talk about
before our
objectifying someone.
duel. An oath grants power in exchange for a certain constraint. Mine was, if I lose, I will obey my opponent. Once put in motion, an oath cannot be broken by the one who swore it. I will keep my promise to you because I must.
An oath, is it? In that case, I have a question for you. What does the Abbey plan to do with the Nomi?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good example of like why that kind of comparative analysis could be interesting, Grail, right? Because if we see what the other games are doing with traders and how they're thinking about them, that then gives us a different background context to ask, okay, what is it about Arise by virtue of which it doesn't make sense for there to be a trader? Because surely if it's a series that so often uses the trader trope, chances are pretty good there's a reason that it is not included in a major release like Arise. And I have some thoughts off the top of my head about that, but I think that's the kind of thing that would be much clearer through analysis.
Not.
To wipe out the demons, of course. We want to end the era of disaster once and for all.
And how exactly does the Abbey plan on wiping out the demons? Is Anominat going to wander the land, slaughtering them all?
They never told me. Innominat's ritual is kept confidential even within the Abbey. All I know is that it involves Melchior.
And it looks like the only way we'll figure out Innominat's true nature is by deciphering Laphicet's book. We'll have to track down Magulu's friend, the one who can read the ancient
Grimoire!
If we go to Sultan Southgand, we ought to find some clues to her whereabouts.
But first, we have to figure out where we are now. We need to find a settler or a village. Something.
I'm surprised us chuckleheads even know our own names.
Even the greatest scholars don't know everything at first. You can't get answers without asking for them.
Truer words have
Fair
never been
enough.
spoken.
Hard to argue with that.
I've never seen a Moloch quite like him.
Eleanor, your job is going to be to protect Laphicet, even if it brings you into conflict with other exorcists. Because if you turn on me...
I know. Like I said, I can't betray you.
Listen, Laphicet. If she makes any strange moves, I want you to stop her immediately, okay?
I don't think Eleanor is such a bad person. Besides, she's oath-bound to her promise.
She's lying, obviously. That's only something you do if your life depends on it.
Yep. An oath is an art that takes complex rituals and lots of hard work and time. Hardly worth the trouble, to be honest.
I told you already. She wants to take you away from us. Women are creatures of deceit, boy.
That sexist bitch.
She's right. Of course that goes doubly so for Velvet the Vengeful Villainess.
That was a joke if that wasn't clear. Okay, so the end of that skit was helpful to me because I was wondering in what sense is what Eleanor just described an oath? Because like she's saying she'll obey Velvet if she lost the duel, but like what special power is being granted her by constraining her will in that way? Like that doesn't even seem like it has the grammar of an oath in terms of how it's structured. It's not like she's deciding I'm going to forgo this in order to achieve that. But it sounds like if I was reading the end of that conversation with Velvet, right, it doesn't make sense just because Eleanor's lying and is a bad liar, which honestly seems more consistent with her character. So that's helpful.
What is it, Laphicet?
I was told that women's looks can be deceiving, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to see.
Grail, I don't know. As a man, I don't feel qualified to answer that question, and so I'm not going to try.
Aye. Women are fickle creatures at best.
I know that's sexist, though, because Aizen said it.
And men can never see through their deceptions.
I totally feel you.
Sounds like you've both been through hard times.
The wounds women leave on a man's heart take longer to heal than a cut delivered by a sword.
It's that bad?
Beware a maiden's tears, boy, and guard yourself well. That's my advice to you.
Beware tears and guard myself.
Are Rokurou and Aizen instant best friends because they're both sad incels who had their hearts broken?
If you fill his head with any more garbage,
Find out later this stream.
both of you.
Yes, ma'am. Yikes.
The swordsman and the pirate having troubles with women? Ha! Well, women are nothing if not difficult. I've the deepest sympathy for you both.
What do you think of the ladies' reactions?
Well, Velvet won't eat either of you, and Magilu didn't seem sympathetic at all.
See? Appearances can be deceiving.
And it seems you've absorbed the lesson well.
Right.
I'm not like that, though.
Huh?
Yes, some women use their tears to manipulate others, but not all do. And I, for one, despise such duplicity.
I'm too busy with other duplicity, like planning to betray you all on a global scale.
See how much you hate dishonesty, Eleanor.
Huh? Yeah, that's right.
Be a good example for the boy, then, so he doesn't end up like Rokurou and me.
I intend to do just that, whether or not you ask it of me.
Eleanor is a lot stronger than she appears.
That was a fun skip. All right, the long and winding road. Oh, I'm amazed I actually remembered to reconfigure my party before we got into battles here.
If I'm in this,
Okay.
I'm in this 100%.
I want Aizen. We just got Eleanor, so we should put her in there.
At your command, I'm ready.
Oh, I feel like we have to have Velvet.
This has always been my fight.
We just got Magilu too, so I was interested in having her involved. Maybe we'll swap out our man Rokurou for a bit.
Miss me that much, did ya?
Well, we have more party members now, Magilu, so it's just confusing. It is. I obviously I don't understand it as deeply as you do, Grail, because you're so deep into the mechanics, but even just trying to decide which characters to put in the active party, I definitely feel what you were saying the other day about how different each of their combat styles is. Like, I feel like figuring out the right way to strike a good balance is not a trivial matter. Grail, that's a good point. I can't dispute that. Yeah, they treat me like I'm invisible. Oh, but Grail, you said it would be a good thing to try out Eleanor as as you call her superior spear girl now that she's here, right? Why don't we do that then? I've been truly enjoying my time with Aizen, and I'm sure we will go back to him, but
Understood.
I have said, like I was saying in terms of the article and analysis at the start of the stream, you see the story so differently when you engage with it through the perspective of different characters. And I do think trying them all out in battle is a really good way of doing that. So let's practice what we preach. Ooh, our expedition is back. Oh, and we get a tutorial for the character the first time we use them. I feel like that is a really useful way to not immediately make you feel overwhelmed. Kind of wish the other games did that. Because if they introduce all this to you when you first get the character, but when you're not using them, which I feel like is more typically what happens, it's like you get that information when you're not actually going to use it, and then you don't retain it because you don't actually practice it in many cases. Aerial strike. Dragoon shenanigans. Well, I can get on board with that. Cool. All right. Pick Moon Echo, another very good point. I feel like Aizen would be pushed to murder if little Edna manipulated him with her sisterly wiles. Oh, that's right. I also said I might try out moderate difficulty. Well, let me play around with Eleanor a little bit, and then we'll make a game day call about whether it makes sense to try that out this stream. All right.
I'll finish this.
That's awesome. So simple, so satisfying. Yeah, I like it a lot, Grail. I feel like it's almost maybe even easier to trigger than Velvet's, but maybe that's my imagination. Because Velvet's doesn't have a specific condition beside the soul either, right? You just have to have the 3 souls for it. Yep, I had that same thought. I feel like her spells are getting interrupted far less frequently than Aizen's were.
You're just lucky I made it quick.
Yeah, I clocked you enjoying that when she was pummeling poor Velvet with it during our duel. Flame Beast, my beloved. But now she's on our side, so it's okay. Well, kind of on our side. I don't feel great about controlling the traitor. But she is very playable. And again, to our point, playable in a way that is very different than both Aizen and Velvet. I love that. Awesome. Oh, I forgot about the expedition.
Take a look at this.
Unyielding. Ooh, a new expedition skill. Love to see it.
Setting sail. Move it or die.
Ah, yes, and we have the final shielding tech now. We're in the green, boys. We're in the green. Yeah, that's got to be your favorite thing, doesn't it, Grail? I can tell by your tone of typing. I hear if you pay extra money for a DLC pack, they do that in literally every battle just to make you extra happy. I will say I'm all for like having to hunt out big game monsters and figure out exactly where they are. That was an element of Final Fantasy XVI I really enjoyed, but it does make life so much easier to see them clearly marked by large red dots on the overworld map. unending mystic art combo. That's the dream.
Huh? This stone.
It's just a rock. Take it if you want.
I think it's really
Oh,
rare.
deflationary
The way
velvet.
it sparkles. I think it might even be bright steel.
Bright steel? Never heard of it.
Not to be confused
Yeah,
with
it's
blight
actually a
steel
rare metal used
for
to
any
forge
magic
weapons and
fans out
stuff.
there.
You don't find it just anywhere.
If there's bright steel here, that means we must be in either Endgand or Islegand. Both are a long ways off from Midgand.
Absolutely,
I
just
doubt the
giant
Titans will be
sister
stationed
energy.
out here.
That's our pirate! Arr! Here there be treasures shiny and sentries few!
At the very least, this could mean we'll be left alone for a while. Nice find, Laphicet.
Thanks.
Now wash your hands.
Okay.
Now that's more like mom energy. Wash your hands.
The only way to learn where we are is to find someone to ask, I guess.
I don't know how interesting that would really be, but it got me thinking at least. Like, we're talking about big sister energy, we're talking about mom energy. I feel like there are moments where Velvet has both of those for Laphicet. So like, I wonder how she strikes that balance, or how the particular combination of those two like define or influence their relationship with each other. I would think one would naturally slide into one or the other like tropes of relationship, but that doesn't feel quite right in this case.
What's eating you, Laphicet?
If people say you can't judge women at face value, does that mean you can with men?
Sure. Men are simple creatures.
Men are simple.
Oh, you talk like you're an expert in all things masculine. But you can only speak for your own family.
As if you're one to judge.
And I'm sure you've charmed a magnificent lord to be your lover.
Sure.
What does he look like? Is he tall?
None of your business.
Don't tell me. He was always on the other side of a swinging door, so you only saw his feet?
So you're saying you don't get the same satisfaction out of doing a combo grail because you don't feel like you've achieved anything?
I see. What a lovely crush that must be.
I read that story. It was a book called The Legs of a Man.
Oh? I've never heard of it.
I've read it too. It's a sad, bittersweet tale, but I enjoyed it quite a lot. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it.
Maybe when I have some free time after killing Artorias.
I just wanted to know if men could be judged at face value.
Honestly, I just think it's nice that Velvet is making any kind of plan for after she kills Artorias. I felt like she was modeling that as the end of the line for her in her
It's
head.
not often you find bright steel above ground. I hear it's a lot of trouble to unearth, even in the regions it's normally found.
Yeah. Mining for minerals takes a lot of specialized techniques and experience on the part of the prospector. They examine the soil, the water, the plants, and so on, where the same mineral was found before. Then search similar environments for the next big find.
Sure, but it's not like they succeed every time. It's all a big gamble. Isn't there a simpler way?
I read in a book once that you can use a pendulum to find water and metals underground.
It's called dowsing.
What's dowsing?
You hang the pendulum so it's facing the ground. Then you chant the magic word, magic.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Grail.
The little bit of ore on its tip will sniff out buried treasure in underground lakes like a bloodhound on a prickle bore.
You don't seriously believe this.
It's just like fortune telling. You win some, you lose some. That's why they call it prospecting.
So, if pendulums are used for fortune telling, why the hell is Zavid running around using them as weapons?
He uses wind to control its trajectory. I think it's easier for him to manipulate pendulums in a fight than something like a whip or a rope.
Oh, that makes sense now. That seems pretty clever.
He's probably also doing it to make himself stronger, too. Malachim broadly fall into 4 elemental types: earth, water, wind, and fire. Each strong or weak against the others. Wind beats earth. Zavid is a wind Malach, so when he obtains earth element minerals, his own strength is boosted.
I never realized Malachim could be so calculating.
Oh man, that's such a small thing that I would never have caught had we not just played Zisteria. But Eisen being the one to explain how Malachim can use a catalyst of the opposing element in order to strengthen their abilities. When Edna was the one who explained that to Mikleo in Tales of Symphonia. So it's like that whole little quiet continuity of she probably learned it from her big brother and now she's passing it on in his stead. Oh, that's such an understated and beautiful moment. I really love that.
Then if pendulums react to a Malak's powers, maybe they can actually do this dowsing stuff like Magilu says.
Yeah, it's worth taking that thing seriously. Zavid might like to joke around, but when it comes to fighting, he knows full well just what he's doing.
He puts an awful lot of thought into that weapon of his, if you ask me.
You don't?
I spare all my thoughts for my sweetheart.
Yeah, right. You just like to cause trouble without putting much thought into anything.
Really subtly, emotionally moving exposition, though.
You're fighting the Reaper.
I love when we get skits like we're getting now in this area that are like a series of skits where they build upon each other as one larger conversation, like we're getting with the ore and with the men versus women stuff. Like I know those sorts of skit series have been around forever in the series, but I don't know if it's just the cadence of them in this or if they have them more frequently than in other games. I feel like I'm noticing them more, at least in this versus others.
Is this also part of the Reaper's curse?
It's an angel's blessing as long as we win.
Boy, that coin close-up was a cool touch for the post-battle scene. Oh, yeah, that feels right, Grail. Maybe it's just because of the raw skit length. So each one really feels like more of a conversation as opposed to just little, smaller snippets of dialogue.
You're fighting the Reaper.
Well, that's consistent with Velvet's character, at least, that she would steal kills. It's because she's so hungry. Velvet has no business dying against these enemies, come on. Yeah, I feel like these harpies are tankier than they have any business being. I think it's pretty hard to break their guard. I don't know if that's just because Eleanor is the wrong character, like her attacks don't really make it through, but yeah, that seems to be what I'm getting. They have like a restrained reaction against basically all of her attacks as I'm trying to hit them. Whoa, that was sick. I think that was the first time we got his Mystic Art off. Ah, thanks, Coach. Coach Grail giving me all the battle tips. I'll have to try that one out.
I'll cut down anyone in my way.
I spy an herb. Oh, and another herb? Oh, it was an imaginary herb over here. Maybe I sensed the herb that I couldn't see yet. That's it.
You there. Got a moment?
Well, you'll have to tell me when she does get them, so we can try them out immediately. What a name.
What?
Get away from me!
Oh, it's on.
I'm sorry, alright? Real class act. Attacking you to apologize.
Is the game audio okay for you too? Because I feel like I'm hearing like some lines a little echoey in my phones, but I don't care as long as it's coming through clearly for you two on the stream. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Pink Moon Echo. It's not the first time it's happened with this game. Sometimes just doesn't sound quite right through my headphones, but maybe it just doesn't play well with them for some reason. Fantastic. All right.
What? My sword! Please, mighty demon, I beg you! I'll do anything! Just spare me!
I only wanted to ask you something.
You don't have to worry. This woman here is an exorcist.
Well, that's fucking weird.
I'm Eleanor.
I have so many follow-up questions.
Please, remain calm and hear our questions.
You do look like an exorcist, but what are you doing with ruffians like these?
That was really my only follow-up question.
Top secret Abbey business. That's all I can say. Now, can you tell us where we are? And are there any ports nearby?
You don't know? You're on Cadnick's Island in Islegand. The port is at the other end of that ravine.
Islegand. What a name for a group of islands.
Thanks.
One more question. Who's this sword breaker?
Ah, he's a demon. Causes lots of trouble around these parts. He only attacks sword fighters, and he breaks their blades. He's even taken down a number of praetors.
Hence the name Swordbreaker.
Yeah, thank you, Grail.
He wields a fine sword, clearly forged in a foreign land. I tried to find his lair to steal the weapon for myself.
Talk about a game changer.
But that's when I was attacked.
A foreign sword.
I'd be careful if I were you. If he spots that sword on your back, you'll be in a world of trouble.
Sounds like a real nasty
Wonder if this is the
fellow.
Code Red demon down below they're talking
Well,
about.
he tries to pull anything on this demon, and he's in for one munchy, crunchy surprise.
That's the only flavor that comes in.
You folks are all crazy.
Either way, I'd say this is a blessing in disguise for you. You're lucky to still be alive. Take this chance to abandon your life of crime.
That's got to be part of the story they're trying to tell, right, Grail? Like, I think we talked on the stream before about how unusual it is for a JRPG and a Tales game especially to be so focused on water travel, like travel by ship, as opposed to just water travel as a transition to eventually air travel in a Riard or on Baul or whatever other example you want to pull out of your ass. So there's got to be something about how all of these different little communities are isolated from one another, and the Abbey controls all of the lines of trade, so it's like they're controlling all the lines of communication, and so like the only way that the communities can develop is bottlenecked and like controlled by the hegemonic fist of the Abbey. That's... I don't know if we can't know where that goes yet, but I feel like there's something there. Oh, Maelstrom, is that one of the good ones? All right, well, we'll have to set
Find
that.
that port and meet up with our ship.
Can you read any of this old writing?
No. I've studied many languages, but I've never seen script like this before. Can you read it, Eleanor?
I've never come across this language either. Where did you find a rare tome like this?
It's a secret.
It was a lucky find at the Capitol. What can I say? The kid loves to read.
I was surprised to see how many Malakim like to read. Bienfu does a lot of reading too. I didn't know that. It's true. I'm not
Oh,
sure
I feel
what
like
he's
slow
reading
spells
now.
don't really
Did
go with
someone
Eleanor,
call
though.
for me?
Bienfu, do you like to read too?
Oh, yes. Books are a treasure trove of knowledge. But I'm a greater Malakim, so the literature I enjoy might be a bit above your level, Luffy said.
Green eggs and
How to
ham.
talk a human female
the
into becoming
Lorax.
your vessel.
Oh, it's so much worse.
Physically escalating with cuties.
Physically escalating with cuties. Tell me more.
Physically escalating. What does that mean?
You
don't
really
need to
don't
know.
need to know.
All right.
Yeah, I'm confiscating all of these.
And I have some questions. Bienfu, you better be ready for a thorough interrogation.
Bien!
So many skits. It's an embarrassment of
You
riches.
look like you're having fun, Rokurou.
Well, I'm a yaksha.
A yaksha. A spirit of war.
Yeah, a demon that lives for combat.
That is a point
But
worth
this
remembering,
sword
Grail.
breaker
Good
has
looking
cut
out.
down exorcists with its foreign blade. Aren't you scared?
Of dying, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of dying. It's more that I'm afraid of not being alive.
Damn.
Fighting is my life. It's all I
I'll take
wanna
things
do.
you hear in most
So I fight.
JRPGs for 400,
That's what
Alex.
living means to me.
Living only to kill. A demon is always going to be a demon.
Well, if you're gonna be blunt.
A twisted maze. Tell me more. Yeah, it is funny. He seems very comparatively chill for the fact that he's literally a demon of war, doesn't he? That almost makes me more unsettled about him, though. Like, I don't remember his whole quest line or character development in the way that you do, but like, I feel like the idea of a quiet warlord is so much more disconcerting to me than one who's loud and brash. Speak softly and carry a large stick. Wasn't that the famous expression of Churchill or Eisenhower or one of those leaders? I forget whom that's attributed to. But pretty directly Rokurou between his soft speech and the large stick he has in his back.
Stop fooling around.
But I'm serious about my fooling around.
The way she dances in, it's very fun. Truer words have never been spoken, Grail.
Guess it's time to fight.
I love the way she launches enemies Grail, is there a way, do you know to, I mean, I'm sure you know, is there a way to follow the enemies into the air once you launch them? Is that something she has to unlock later or something? I'm just thinking about Judith, and I'm wondering whether we can get the same nutty aerial combos going, juggling enemies. Oh, don't worry, Grail. That one I did have in my plan already. But I need all the reminders I can get, so thank you for that. Ah, that's a shame. Well, at least there's something to unlock. Everybody gets Mystic Arts! It's nice that the guard skills have different sound effects so that even when there's a bunch of nonsense happening on the field, like right now, you can still tell which one's trigger. It's a small thing, but it helps a lot in a pinch. Oh, a soul! She said arise! Was Makilu the Nostradamus of Tales of Berseria? She knew about Arise before Bamco did? And if that's my worst joke on a Friday night, we will be in good shape.
Come on, put up some fight, okay?
That was a good one too, I like that. Ooh, we get to see the number of unopened treasure chests on the minimap. That's useful. Or it's going to drive me insane, which is probably the more likely outcome. A guardian that bears a sweet scent. Very cute. Yeah, thanks, Grail. I was a little afraid of that. I want to give Magilu some chocolate. Ah, I see. It gives her way better... Whoa, her weapons all look so different from each other. I love that. I figured they would just be different colors or something. It's nice that they have more character to them. So that really specs her into spellcasting. Well, that seems good. Why not? Oh, and our expedition is back. When it rains, it pours.
Take a look at this.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Scout ship setting sail.
So what was that unyielding one we got? Oh, that's right. It overturns defeats in battle. Well, maybe one of these days that'll proc, and we'll actually get a win or two. That Maelstrom is pretty satisfying, even though it's a little bit slower.
This fight is over.
Oh, that's nice. So I hadn't realized that, but it seems like it's the case that not only do they auto-set the combos for the characters, like we were talking about, but they also auto-update them as the characters learn new arts. Because, I mean, that was just Maelstrom, and I didn't set it, and we watched Eleanor learn it a few battles ago. That's interesting.
Looks like you want to die.
Yeah, that makes sense, Gray. Well, didn't Systeria also generate combos, though?
That's the end for you.
Like, you could set them yourself in the way that you can in Berseria, but I thought they also default auto-generated some. Yeah, interesting. Well, who knows? Maybe one of these days they'll do a definitive edition wrapping together Systeria and Berseria, and maybe giving more features to toggle. Still can't do that yet. Okay. And that was the way we came, and this is the new way. Good, not lost. Oh, yeah, so it was more constrained. Got it.
What's wrong?
Interesting.
An enemy.
It's on! Ooh, that sword.
That sword.
Looks like that sword.
Stormquell?
Stormquell and Stormhell.
You must be the sword breaker.
I think we're gonna get some more Rokurou backstory. I can't fucking wait. You have to remember, Grail, Laphicet has been through some shit in the last little bit, so I think it's fair for him to not be all there at the moment. He ripped open a portal in space-time, he almost turned into a demon, he's living inside a woman now. Got some adjusting to do. Jesus. Did I stutter? What I said was clear. Man, do you remember those really creepy, very regular human voices that Cerberus had in Tales of Systeria? This Swordbreaker demon's voice reminds me of one of those for some reason. That makes the combat more believable, right, Grail? You wouldn't buy it if every single hit landed or was aimed at something. It's all in the spirit of making the world more believable.
He's still moving.
I'll take this one. Come and get me!
My man.
Good challenge!
Look out!
Jesus.
Don't interfere!
What do you think you're doing?
You never interrupt a duel.
Sorry. I just got a little riled up.
Understatement of the stream.
Do you know that demon?
No, but I know his sword. A blade called Stormquell.
Stormquell.
Whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with us. Let's just get to the port already.
I mean, that's a somewhat myopic use of the word us, Velvet. It very clearly has to do with one of you. Oh, nice. People heal faster outside of battle. I assume that means the people who are on the sidelines during a battle, since that's when they regenerate health.
I'm ready for this.
Good question, Grail. Reminds me of that question we were mulling about Tales of Arise a few streams ago in terms of are Shion and Alphen the perfect fit for each other because they're two puzzle pieces, or are they each other's only option and therefore settling for one another? It's all in how you look at it, isn't it? I wonder if that's something that'll be equally ambiguous throughout the whole game. What's the real Rokurou? Or if, as we learn more about him, we'll get more insight into what his actual personality is. It did seem more aligned with what I would expect a war demon to act like. Which would maybe, if he became a specific demon that's a war demon, that would speak to it being the demon side as opposed to his true self or whatever. Well, yeah, I don't think anyone was stopping him as such, but I think, you know, his particular lack of feeling might be, you know, an obstacle to a relationship with a woman for whom that's not particularly meaningful in the way it is for Shion.
If you want to live, get out of my way.
Also, they were kind of like, if I remember correctly, without any real deep spoilers for Tales of Arise, kind of engineered to fit together in a way that was like a unique fit for the roles that they were meant to play with regard to the two worlds.
Sorry about what happened back there.
I thought he was going to kill you.
Yeah, I know. You were just doing what you thought was right.
Yeah, maybe so.
That's good then. I didn't give you a clear enough warning to stay out of it. If it ever happens again, I'll give you a proper warning.
You really don't want me to help you? Even if your life is at risk?
Yup.
Why?
Actually, I'm not too sure myself.
Huh?
There's somebody out there I need to defeat by my own hand. I want to strike him down. I want to triumph against him. But to do that, I need to be a better swordsman.
Someone you have to defeat.
In a sword fight, yeah. And I'll do anything to ensure I come out on top in the end. No matter how much it costs me. Life, limb, hell, even my heart and soul, I'll pay it. Those feelings have been so central to me for so long. I lost my dang humanity somewhere along the way.
Why do you need to win that badly?
To be honest, beats me. Maybe it has to do with me being a demon. Or maybe that's why I became one. Either way, it's more important to me.
That line echoes what we were just talking about, doesn't it, Grail?
More important than life.
But still, I owe you for saving me back there. There's no victory pose in store for me if I'm dead.
Okay.
Is that how you thank someone for saving your life?
Huh? I'm just being honest with the little guy. And no offense and all, but why do you care?
You don't even think it disrespectful? You truly are a demon.
Yep. Big old demon.
That's an interesting dual perspective question too, the way Eleanor so readily comes to Laphicet's defense. Is that because of Eleanor's personality and her intrinsic sense of justice, or is it because she's bound to Laphicet in this way now, so she has this special bond with him that's causing her to empathize with him more, or have, you know, access to his inner life in a way that others wouldn't? He's just a child.
I was just getting warmed up. Was that supposed to be a joke?
It is a pretty satisfying one. All the more so because you can just use it for free all the time instead of Eisen's, which is so much more specific.
I wish I had power like that.
Cats Liberation Task Force. Oh my god, we have so many cat spirits. Left swept bangs. Finally. You haven't truly lived until you've tried left swept bangs. Well, that wasn't a great start. That's not what I meant. Ah, man, I keep doing that by mistake. Okay. That's a good point, Grail. Alicia was a tad less broken. Well, she was broken, but in other ways. More emotionally based than combat based.
Fly away, little birdie. Far away.
Oh, Eisen got the Dragoneer title. I like that. Not to be confused with a Dragoon. The Dragoneer. Yeah, we gotta stack some of those W's for her now. She's catching up. Although, I don't know, being Artorias' little weenie spy is a pretty big common Eleanor L, if you ask me. All right, on to the labyrinthine cave, I think. I think it's a cave. All right, that's not a bad state for Eleanor to be in, Grail. Though I don't know. I got a bad feeling from the way we started this stream off. I feel like she may be racking a few more L's up before we're said and done for the evening here. Only one way to find out.
Now why does that name sound so familiar?
Oh, Grail, don't call it that. We've already lost.
Hey, Eleanor? Thanks for stepping in earlier.
Think nothing of it. My orders are to protect you, so I did.
Oh, I see.
Of course, orders or no orders, I'd save anyone under threat from a demon. Well, how noble.
Oh, I got it!
Got what?
The tragic tale of the sword Stormquell. Gather round and listen, oh grimy travelers. Once, centuries past, there was a sword renowned the world over for its peerlessly sharp edge. Its forger shrouded in mystery. So mighty was each swing of the sword, it produced howling winds that could level mountains. No other sword could match its power. The people, in their superstition, began to call it the Godblade.
This Godblade, is it Stormquell?
Shush! The tale is merely beginning. Now, there was one man who was truly enamored with the Godblade. His name was Kurogane, a blacksmith of wondrous talent. His heart was set on forging an even greater sword, and he had a name in mind for this sword. Stormquell, the sword to conquer the Godblade's roaring winds.
And did he make it?
Kurogane forged scores of challengers to the Godblade, but each would-be Stormquell was shattered by the implacable howling wind. Some say the wielder of the Godblade chopped off his head. Others say he took his own life. The truth is lost to the dusty cobwebs of history. But perhaps he, and his grudge towards the Godblade, somehow yet live.
A grudge that spans centuries. You hear tall tales like this all the time. That sword and its inscription we saw were probably just inspired by the legend.
Perhaps. But if that's the real Stormquell, we should all sleep with one eye open tonight.
What makes you say that?
Because that Godblade Kurogane wanted so desperately to top has been passed down through my family for generations. Its name is Stormhowl.
In other words, we could well bump into your armored friend again. Let's hurry it up.
Yeah, it's a good question, Grail. I wouldn't be surprised if, knowing Magilou, if she, like, did the prosthetics to herself to make her seem more like a witch or something. Like, that seems consistent with her character as we know it. But it does seem like something that's needling. I was looking things up over here because I was like, man, Stormhowl, Stormquell, why is it reminding me or calling to mind things from other games? And it's Miyazaki, which makes me wonder whether it's something that's just from, like, Japanese myth or folklore that, like, a number of Japanese creators draw on. Because first of all, I don't think this is supposed to be in the same family, but there's Stormvale Castle is one of the first areas in Elden Ring. But then also, there was a sword with a similar name and a similar function that was really reminiscent of the story that Magilou was talking about, the Godblade commanding the winds. The Storm Ruler from Demon Souls, which is one of those like weapons designed specifically for a boss encounter where you fight, I forget the name of the Storm King. That's the boss fight. I'm shamelessly reading off of the wiki because it's been a minute since I played Demon Souls. But these like giant manta rays flying in the air in the middle of the storm, and so you take this unique sword and you wield it in order to basically channel the wind into a massive blade and cut them down, which sounded super similar to the myth that was just being told here. So maybe we'll have to look it up at some point, see if there's some common pool of mythology they're drawing from for these storm commanding swords. Oh, are you kidding me, Grail? I feel like that would be the worst possible outcome. Oh, that's the thing that scares me about revenge. Like, yeah, it poisons you and it's cancerous and it prevents you from living your life. But imagine being on a revenge quest and then just something completely unrelated to your revenge just naturally kills the person you're after. And so it's like the person escaped it, like they get out of a revenge free card, but you get none of the cathartic release of the revenge, even if only for a moment. Yeah, that would be the real nightmare, I think. Pow! The way Eleanor just puts her two hands together and swings them to break the rock. I feel like that should not work.
Right then, let's finish this.
Yeah, my thought exactly, Grail. When that revenge has been pretty much the sole directive keeping you alive for 3 years through imprisonment and torture and deprivation, like,
I had no problems here.
to be robbed of even the possibility of it would just devastate you, I think. Have to imagine. Oh, yeah, I'm already lost. We went in at the bottom. There's a warp point, but it also looks like there's an exit point on the other side to a different screen. I can keep the warp point in my head. And, although I feel like the warp points in the last dungeon were to single rooms with treasures or unique enemies or things like that, so maybe we want to check the warp point first. And it was somewhat hidden, which makes me think that it's a secondary path. On your difficulty and rule set, Grail, it is not hard for me to imagine that being the case. Slow ward! Keep going fast!
Time to dish out.
Oh! The move where she uses her spear as a fulcrum to swing around like a carousel is great too. Yeah, that one. It's a little mini whirlwind, speaking of storm.
Not bad.
You too.
Best friends.
Take a look at this.
I swear to God, I think I mentioned this on a previous stream, but I feel like Sony really just shat the bed on their first run of PS5 controllers, unless I'm just not taking care of mine in some way. But I take really good care of my tech, and truly, like, I've had the PS5 for not that long. I mean, I guess since it came out, so like a year, maybe a year and a half, however long, maybe 2 years at this point. But anyway, all that to say, like, I don't know if you just saw the battery notification. I've only been using this fully charged controller since we started the stream, and now, what, not even 2 hours later, it's running low on battery? That's insane to me. Especially for a system that I otherwise find to be so well built. That's like, I feel like it's going backwards. And this isn't even a PS5 game, so it's not like it's using haptic feedback or anything.
Scout ship setting sail.
Yeah, that's, maybe I just have the real Reaper's Curse, Grail. Maybe that's the explanation. All the jokes I've made about our real life JRPG party, I guess that's true for better and for worse. Well, I mean, if there's one thing that you learned from the Zestiria stream and that wonderful bout of spells in the EX dungeon, Grail, it's that I love enemies who immediately cast spells that absolutely ruin your life.
Looks like you want to die.
Oh my god. Yeah, look at that AoE. That's like the entire battlefield. I don't like that either. Yes, but that was in a bygone age, Grail. The age of the gods.
That about does it.
Back when Martel and Douse were real, recent figures as opposed to myths and coins and statues in the ocean.
Listen, Laphicet.
What is it?
You can't trust her just because she said she'd protect you. Orders or no orders. Remember, Malakim are just tools to exorcists.
But she really did protect me.
I know you feel you owe her for that. But do you have to look so happy about it?
Sorry.
I'm not asking for an apology. I just want her to know that we've all got an eye on her. No matter how close you two get. I want her to understand that I come first.
So...
She's a jealous girl, this Velvet.
Let's see. To put it simply, I'm number 1, and Eleanor is number 2. Got it?
I get it. You're number 1, and Eleanor is number 2.
Right. I'm number 1. Wait, this is kind of stupid, isn't it?
It's alright.
Speaking of at least being self-aware.
That's not what I mean.
Oh, at least you get it, Velvet. Yeah, that's a good point, Grail. Maybe it's just a skill check for dodge timing. I'll have to try to embrace it that way myself, though I don't know if it'll end well. No, try as she might. Although I don't think she's trying especially hard at the moment. I do find myself, though, needing to consciously retrain my my playstyle to get close to the enemy before triggering the Soul Burst, or whatever the R2 attack is called. Because I'm so spoiled by Aizen being able to immediately teleport to any enemy who's down, and Eleanor is clearly not doing that when she shakes the heavens. Oh my god, here we go. Oh, nope! Okay, so that was a lesson in how not to time it. Hopefully we'll do better next time. Brutal. You can do some comboing off of it, like if you knock them into the air and then have that spin move going so they fall down into it. That's pretty satisfying. Beautiful. Kershaw. Oh, that makes sense to me. I feel like they resonate in terms of their approach to kind of princessly honor. Even though they're... I guess neither of them is really a princess, technically speaking. Without too many spoilers. I like that when they match cameo outfits, not just according to, say, aesthetic style, but actually which characters resonate with which others.
A candle? What's that doing here?
Oh, I think
What are some of the
these
other
are
ones? I know you said
robbers away
Velvet has
from
Ruti's
the
outfit,
ruins around
right?
old king's tombs.
What are the other
I've
ones?
read about this. There's a trick to the stone. It reacts to heat.
Heat, huh? Then there's only one thing to do.
So light 'em up, 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 light 'em up, up, up. So, Trial of Fire rules from Zestiria. Consistency across the ages in this world. Which is called the Desolation, lest we forget that after last time's stream. What a name for a world. We have to think more about that. Yeah, between the sea-based travel and all the islands and the fact that the world is called the Desolation, I feel like we could spin up some thematic insight from just the the nature of the world's topography and cartography.
Time to dish out.
Sure, so you got Witch Resonance.
You're just lucky.
I guess you could see kind of the same, or at least similar sorts of quiet
There are things
resolve
worse than death.
in Eisen and Schubert. Boy, Laffy said as Richard though, that's one of those comparisons that feels unsettling, even if there's something about it that might be on the money. And obviously with Zillia too, Aaron still needs to get to that one before he can comment on it. Sounds based on all the other ones though, as if they were pretty thoughtful about the comparisons across the board, unsurprisingly. Oh, that's disappointing. In my head, they all looked pretty well suited to those. But the more I think about it, the more I can imagine how that would be the case. Does it come with glasses for him too, or just the rest of the outfit? Because I could see how glasses might be cursed. Awesome. Awesome! Ah, I was afraid that was gonna miss. It does feel almost mean to spam her soul break the way we're doing. But it works.
That was a considerably powerful enemy.
Oh, there you go. Some guys just have the face for it. I've been told that I'm able to make glasses work in an alright sort of way, which is nice because I have for a while now been putting off a long overdue trip to the optometrist because I'm afraid I've finally crossed the bridge where I need glasses. And I'm not quite willing to admit that I'm in that stage of my life yet. Yeah, but like, yes, and that's kind of why I was like, okay, I get it, but I'm unsettled because, like, yes, but in such different ways are those two characters dragged along by pretty different demons. But I guess maybe that's part of what makes the comparison interesting. Oh, I don't know. It's one of those where, like, it gives me an uncomfortable perspective on Laffy, but I also feel like if you were to stop and think about it, it might give you a new beat on his character. Yeah, thank you. Good reminder, Grail. Yeah, you do hate to see it. I always prided myself on my vision, but I don't know. I also like having accessories, so one more thing to keep track of. And one really gets used very quickly to wearing sunglasses in Colorado because the sun is always out and brutally bright at altitude, so you don't really have much of a choice.
Are we ready for this?
Ouroboros! Oh no! There goes the rest of the stream. Strap in, I've locked the doors. We're talking about Xenoblade Chronicles for the rest of the stream. For the rest of the weekend. I missed your reference, Grail. I'm sorry. I didn't get that last message.
That was a considerably powerful enemy.
8.75 grade. I can live with that. Scout's Ventite. Double the effect rate for the first strike in battle. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Ah, yes. Boy, that is a niche quotation. I appreciate you, Grail. Even niche for someone like me who has lived in that script more than anyone, including the people who wrote it, ought to live in it. No, it can't be. N, the man who betrayed us, he can't be my me. And that's my best riff remixing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 with Tales of Symphonia, ladies and gentlemen. The most Aaron thing I could do on a day when I released an article about Tales of Symphonia, and Kratos specifically. You do seem to have a sixth sense for gameplay and comedy, which I respect. I guess those, you know, especially with the games you play, those two things might be more closely related than one might expect. Like, having a good sense for timing, really important in comedy and, you know, combat-based fighting games.
You better be ready.
No. I would respectfully disagree with that. Both great games, but maybe a little different. And everyone knows all stories with clones are the same. What other examples can we throw out? Nier, iRobot, The Prestige. Look at us throwing out all these names for the same thing. No difference. Star Wars 2, Attack of the Clones. Those poor turtles. I really wish they made his outfit, like, dirtier, or other indicators that he was just losing money and becoming gradually more destitute as he sold us more goods. Oh, interesting. So the ribbon would give Eleanor a lot more physical attack, but it would kind of nerf her spells. I like her having utility in both. I feel like going down the middle with her stats makes more sense to me. Okay, we bought a lot of new stuff. That's enough for now. Grail, that's going to put you on a good timeout for 10 minutes. Come back after your time in the corner. Boo!
If you aren't the craziest demon, your body's harder than your own sword.
Who's this?
That's Lord Shigure, one of the only two-legged exorcists.
Shigure! The one Rokurou's been hunting.
A legate. Same as Melchior.
That face looks kind of familiar.
Eleanor! Fancy meeting you here. What the hell happened to you? You get captured by a demon? Or are you a turncoat?
I'm...
Don't matter. I do my own thing. I got no standing to tell you how to live. Still, today's my lucky day. Never thought I'd encounter the one and only Stormquell.
Shigure, I think someone over there wants your attention.
Oh my god.
He looks lonely.
I forgot that his Malik was the
You're right,
fattest cat in the world.
Just can't pass up the chance to tease my little brother. Can I, Rokurou?
Ah, brother!
You haven't changed a bit, Shigure.
You go blind, dumbass? I'm bucket load stronger now.
Exorcists and
The one
demons.
who hasn't changed, I bet. You still hung up on trying to take me down?
Yes.
Want to beat in a fight? That's him?
I'm not who I was that day either, brother.
Oh, wait. You're a demon?
I'm excited,
Now it's
Grail.
getting good.
I'm excited.
But I wonder, has that really changed anything?
That was a pretty cool way to unsheath your sword, man.
Storm Howl breaks your sad reject again. You gonna piss yourself like last time?
Jesus Christ.
I'll handle him.
Talk about big sibling energy.
No matter what, I need you to stay out of it.
All right.
Oh my god, I forgot it was a duel.
Too long since we crossed swords, brother. Shut up! You're dead! I make you regret sparing my life last time!
Oh, this was not a good choice to not play as Rokurou at all before this. I am immediately regretting that. Yeah, I can see why you would. I am too on normal human difficulty. Is that what his soul burst is? A counter? Okay, that's good to know. Ah, fuck! I feel like I can't even chain his attacks together. Well, this is horrible. Literally, what are his arts? Are there other things on these? Oh, right. Look at you reminding me of how the basic mechanics work in this very niche combat system within the Tales series, Grail. Oh my god. This is so much worse than the Velvet Eleanor fight. I feel like the game is pitying me, but I'll take it. There we go. Alright. It's all about the timing for that, obviously. Okay, there we go. Whew. I was afraid we were going to have to try to get him much further down.
But alas, I think our fight's over.
Rokurou! What? My body!
That's hilarious. I won't interfere. I'll just possess my exorcist to get her to interfere.
No backing down for you this time, huh? But we're done for today. Shigure! Oh, calm down, Rokurou. We could have a real fight sometime if you actually brought a decent sword. Go ask that old bastard there to make you one. I'll be waiting. Who?
That demon in the armor, Kuragane.
The blacksmith! From the store!
Oh, story was real.
I'll be waiting for you at Port Cadnix. Unless you can beat me, you ain't getting off this island.
Who are you to decide that?
You got a problem with it, lady?
I'm much, much stronger than you. That's who I am.
Best of luck, you demons. You'll need it.
Lord Shigure, sir! I'm on a high-level mission.
Eleanor, babe, I get it. You've gone rogue. Have fun with that. I see you again. I'll kill you.
He wasn't even trying yet. You can tell.
Yeah, that's a good point, Grail.
But if we all fight him together...
That won't work. But there is another way.
What are you talking about? What way?
Follow me.
Rokurou!
Yeah, that's interesting what you said during the fight about Rokurou and Rokurou and Velvet's motivation being the same, but Rokurou being selfish. It's like, in one sense, they're both seeking revenge, right? But in the other sense, it's like Velvet's revenge is kind of different because she's seeking revenge for her brother and his death, whereas Rokurou is directing that revenge towards his brother. So they're kind of, in one sense, the same, and in another sense, like mirror images of one another, almost. Sasuke and Itachi. I know those names, Pink Moon Neko, but I don't think I have watched or read or played what they are from, which is embarrassing to me. What story are they from? Itachi, not Itachi.
Velvet, aren't we going after him?
Naruto, okay,
This
that's
is
what I
his
thought.
fight.
I didn't
Has
want to
nothing
say
to do
that and
with
be
me.
wrong.
But Shigure said he'd be waiting at the port. He may be a nutball, but I don't think he's fool enough to let us slip past.
Exactly. And as a swordsman, he's even more skilled than Artorias, and that's saying something.
We're mice with our tails pinned, and the cat's licking his lips.
At the very least, Kuragane seems to have some kind of plan.
Fine. We'll hear what he has to say.
Yeah, that's a good point about Arthur being her brother-in-law, Velvet's, Grail. It's almost like the brother-in-law is the perfect position there where, like, especially after the way that he seemingly used her sister turned Malik after her sister died, it's like she kind of recognizes that by virtue of her sister's love for him, Velvet's always going to be bound to him in some kind of familial way, but she resents that, which does also sound like a very Rokurou thing in terms of how he feels about Shigure,
Take a look at this.
based on what little we know so far.
Quitting is the same as defeat. Nice. There's no better victory than a safe return.
That is pretty satisfying, to edit our way to a perfect 3 W's
I knew this would be
when
big.
it works out.
What a treasure!
Portrait of the 3 Guardians. Thanks to Grail, I understand this to be an illusion to look forward to when I get to Radiant Mythology. The Island of 3 Seasons.
Scout ship setting sail.
What was that fat cat creature with Shigure?
You mean Morgrim? She's a Moloch. She just looks different.
And?
And what? She has all the abilities of a Moloch. I'm not trying to keep anything from you. All I know is her name and that she's a Moloch.
Reminds me a little of the cat leader of the Forest Covenant in Dark Souls as well.
She's also a warrior who can match exorcists or demons even without the use of Moloch arts. Since no one has ever seen Shigure use an art, Morgrim is considered one of the 7 wonders of the Abbey.
The 7 wonders of the Abbey.
No one knows Morgrim's capabilities, or even the details of Shigure's pact with her.
No one! Except me, that is!
Huh?
This is all highly classified, but Morgrim is incredibly lazy. The
Love
price
it.
she demanded of Shigure for making a pact with her was grooming and defleeing.
Anything else?
Oh, and on a point of sensitivity, she's chubby, not fat. She may be our enemy, but she's also a woman. You should try not to hurt each other's feelings.
Anything else?
Her thick eyebrows are all the rage with Malakim, so much so that false eyebrows are expected to be the next big thing.
Well, if he's that strong without Moloch arts, I don't want to see what he's like with them.
I think one thing that's interesting to keep in mind also, which was called to mind for me by that skit, was you have Eleanor talking about these 7 wonders of the Abbey and all of this lore and mystery shrouding the Malakim that the legates use and stuff like that. And so it sounds like the Abbey has this like long and legendary mythological history. It's only been around for 3 years in a world where there are all of these different distinct ages and lore and this long history. So I feel like the way exorcists like Eleanor especially lean into kind of the Kool-Aid of the Abbey, that as much as anything is a really great way of the story showing us how hegemonic and authoritarian and maybe even fascistic the Abbey is in the way it kind of imposes itself as the absolute and only reality in the world, taking over the machinery of a society's history and making it all about your group. I mean, that just is hegemony, and that's how those groups rise to power, right? As we were talking a few streams ago about. Is there a bigger map here? Now I am a little lost because I can't tell if we opened up a way to new rooms in this dungeon or if we just opened up a shortcut back to the beginning. I don't really want to spend more time here if there's not reason to.
What were you thinking, Eleanor?
Oh,
Attacking
I
the
guess this
legate
was the
like
right way
that?
to go. Never mind.
Well, I just thought Rokurou was going to die if I didn't intervene.
Oh? You'd kill one
Oh.
of your own allies for a demon?
I acted without thinking. Sometimes
She's so
I'm too
protective of
soft-hearted
Laufey said
to
already.
fault.
I'd say it's less that, and more just stupidity. You're supposed to be protecting Laufey. Don't get yourself into trouble you don't need.
Ironically, that's
Even if
exactly
one
what
of our own
Eleanor
is
is
in
doing
danger?
at this very moment.
Even then.
This kid must be really important to her. All right, I understand.
Laufey, next time she acts up, stop her. Understand? We don't know what she's got up her sleeve.
But it's probably Artorias.
Okay. Thanks for not telling on me, Eleanor. And I'm sorry I hijacked your body.
I understand how it feels to want to protect your friends, The problems with those demons.
Yeah, that's a good
not
point,
you.
Grail. With Eleanor, it's much like she's just naturally being a big sister, as opposed to Velvet, who is so vocally insisting that she is a big sister.
I'm not sure. It's hard to say.
I have to figure out what's going on with this group, if I ever hope to wrest the child from them.
Oh, that's true. I'd already forgotten about that because Eleanor seemed so sincere to me, but we also have the option that she's just being protective of Laphicet and bonding with him as kind of a means of subterfuge and manipulation in order to more easily deliver him to Artorias. Gosh, look at how well the deception has worked. I'm already falling for Eleanor's bait. Oh my god, is this another warp point? Well, at least there's a chest to confirm that we didn't just go in a big circle, because I was afraid that we had. Yeah, that's true, Grail. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's not as complicated as you might expect or hope. Sometimes just be nice to people, and even if there's plenty of reason for them not to trust you, they'll end up taking a liking to you in return. Maybe that's the message all along. Why do they keep remapping Velvet to the lead?
You know what you're getting into?
It's because we lost Rokurou, that's why.
I'll devour anyone who gets in our way.
Let us be going.
I'm trying, Eleanor, but pretty complicated. The Velvet Show featuring other characters? It's funny, though, because I don't know if this goes directly back to Pink Moon Neko's question about whether this is a JRPG or an anti-JRPG, but I feel like one of the ways, at least, in which it's subversive is there are some JRPGs where you think about it as the main protagonist or the party leader's game, just because that party leader, like, you know, is a really charismatic leader and really nicely represents and inspires the main themes of the game. Thinking about like Aloyd in Tales of Symphonia, or Luke in Tales of the Abyss, or whatever other examples you want to put. But in this game, at least so far, it strikes me as much less of that and much more of like Velvet, like angrily and passionately like enforcing her revenge quest on everyone. So it's less of like they're inspired to follow her and more like she's aggressively taking everyone along for the ride with her. So it comes to the same thing, albeit for very different reasons. All right, I think we cleared this room out at least. We're at the end of one of the paths. Yeah, but Grail, don't you feel like you could say that about a lot of the Tales games? Or maybe just JRPGs in general? Maybe not always about the main protagonist, but like, I think we were talking about Tales of Symphonia a while ago, where like every character can kind of be seen as a facet of Mythos' character and his like his core trauma with Martel and everything like that. Everyone's kind of a microcosm of everyone else in Tales of the Abyss just because of how the world and storytelling is set up. Maybe not Tales of Berseria, but like I was saying, I think there are ways in which it's similarly an anti-JRPG or different in that dimension. Well, that's interesting. I mean, that kind of makes me want to replay it just to have it fresher in my mind to argue with you, because at least the way I remember it and what really captured it for me in my mind was really focalized through Richard and kind of, what's the right way to say this without spoilers, the character that ends up being something like the other side of Richard by the end of the game. Not in quite the same way as something like Mythos in Tales of Symphonia, but I felt like it was a similar like thematic keystone to seeing all of the characters and relationships in the game. But I imagine that's also one of those stories that you could read through multiple lenses, like most of the Tales games.
Whoa.
To our point at the start of the stream.
Swords.
That's what happens when the legendary blacksmith Kurogane toils so hard he forgets to die.
That is a pretty cool origin story for a demon.
Of nothing else but forging a sword that could surpass Stormhowl.
Also, an interesting like callback or mirror to Azura, the shepherd who turned into a Hellion because he became so obsessed with just having the perfect weapon to quell all of the malevolence in the entire world for all time. And here we are with a very different kind of demon with a very similar kind of, let's say, axe to grind, pun intended.
And before I knew it,
You had traded your humanity for demonhood.
I see I'm not the only one. So great was your grudge against your brother, the inheritor of Stormhowl.
Well, guess we're not so different. You don't suppose you could hammer me up a new sword, do you?
I've forged countless blades over these long years, yet not one has proven a match for Stormhowl. And yet you still seek a Kurogane sword?
I'll put it like this. No matter how much you've failed across the centuries, you've never broken. Well, I'm the same way. If anything can break Shigure and his god blade, it's the bitterness I carry.
Strangely enough,
That's a very Velvet
you
thing
and
to say.
Your brother has given me an idea that might work. I will forge you a new blade.
Should we get some Brightstone?
Nope. No need for that.
Huh?
Should I take it from the top?
If you would, my arms are all I'll be needing.
What are you doing?
Don't be alarmed. I'm just cutting free some raw materials for the sword.
That part of the game I definitely remember. I don't know though, Grail. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I'm not trying to be contrarian, but remember, wasn't it like just last stream that we were talking about not being sure how to situate Aizen in the party because he felt like someone who was kind of a leader on his own terms, kind of going along with Velvet, kind of mentoring people in a different way than she was. So, like, obviously, it's a JRPG, they're going to have some relationships with each other, but I do feel like just with the composition of this party and them having kind of like their own motives and journeys through the world, like, yeah, you're going to see like shadows and echoes of them in each other, but I feel like relative to the more standard JRPG, at least so far, I've been seeing that like a little less than I might expect in other games. You know what I mean?
You see something new every day.
You need his head to make the sword?
Or Magilu even.
That's
I feel
right.
like she's kind of
With this
like an odd
fine
one out in
lump of
similar
pure
ways.
resentment, I shall forge your imitation Stormhowl anew.
No. I only keep this imitation as a reminder of how weak-willed I was in the past. To defeat Shigure, I've perfected the art of dual wielding, a secret Rangetsu technique.
All right. If that's what you prefer, a pair of short swords it is.
That's actually a cool echo of Regal too. I might have put that as a footnote or something if we had played this before I published my article today. Regal weapons that he doesn't use that he keeps as a reminder of sins or failures in his past. His hands bound by shackles, and Rokurou very similarly carrying around a weapon that he doesn't use as a reminder of maybe not sins, but shame in his past. That was a connection I was not expecting, but very cool. Well, when your whole ethos is, discipline and following through and being a war demon, I guess that's what you consider failure.
Whoa.
We'll wait outside.
Let's have some conversations. Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, maybe if Rokurou had the skill level of Shigure based on that fight we had with him, that might seem like a more apples to apples comparison in terms of skill levels. Yeah, as opposed to Regal, who can casually drop spirit bombs from his palms. That still holds up as one of my biggest wow moments in Tales of Symphonia, where he just does that to free them from the prison in Walgaia. Like, even going back to it as an adult after I'd seen it a million times, it is just as cool as it ever was.
I made the Enfu rush out to the docks to scout the place out. Pretty smart, am I right?
I pity that creature sometimes.
That Kurogane, though, what a character! Giving his own body to forge a sword, like some kind of ritual sacrifice.
Ritual sacrifice. It's certainly something only a demon would do. It was a necessary sacrifice in order to gain power.
A necessary sacrifice. What a vicious turn of phrase.
Indeed.
Still, I can't say I'm not thrilled to see how it all turns out. If what you give is mere meat for a god's morbid lunch, could there be a more trivial sacrifice? But if the offering is one's own body and soul, even a single hair can be portentous. I wonder which he will have been in the end.
That's a cool conversation. It highlights a theme that has been pretty in our face throughout the game, but I don't think we've really talked about, which is just the motif and I guess the symbol of sacrifice of the body, be it your own or someone else's. Like, Velvet's body has obviously been, you might say mangled, you might say transformed by her becoming a Hellion. We had Ceres was her Malachi's sister's name, right? Offering her body for Velvet to consume to basically give her the strength to overcome and correct Artorias. Now we have this example of the blacksmith offering a part of his own body for the sake of his craft. That I feel like is not as consistent a theme in the other games, but it's an interesting sort of play on like how to draw agency from the sort of objectification that we were discussing earlier in the stream. You have something that's not as visceral, but maybe thematically consonant in Tales of Symphonia, where the way that people don't so much offer their bodies, but have their bodies transformed into X-spheres, and then people have to decide what to do with them, but it doesn't really come off the same way, because most people who are made into X-spheres don't have agency in it, as opposed to these people who are electing to alter or sacrifice their bodies in some ways. And the controller's gone. Thankfully, I have another. Please hold, my friends. Unbelievable. So I guess I might have to play with a plugged-in controller from now on, since I can't even make it through one stream.
The ship is on its way, right on schedule.
Of course it is. They don't have the Reaper on board.
One more thing. Apparently, Shigure is Artorias' bodyguard.
So we'll have to face him down sometime, no matter what.
It's in our best interest to get rid of him while he's working alone. The problem is, Rokurou can't beat him by himself.
Agreed. Shigure is not to be trifled with.
Certainly. That's why, when Rokurou creates an opening, we're going to take Shigure out.
You want us to meddle in somebody else's private quarrel?
If it affects my own quarrel, yes.
I suppose I'm in the same position. Besides, I can still use him. There's no sense in throwing his life away.
Rokurou's not really a guy to care about the big picture. He might try to hack your limbs off a bit, but he'll get over it.
Okay, Grail, so I think I see what you're saying now. I think the issue we were having before was we were talking past each other because we meant slightly different things. What I thought you were talking about was the idea that everyone in the game represents a certain aspect of Velvet's character. So, I'll give you an example because I was literally talking about this earlier today with your favorite person, my friend and colleague, Dan Hughes, because like I mentioned last time, I'm rewatching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and that's one of Dan's favorite pieces of media. And so we were talking about it, and he was sharing with me this idea he has that every JoBro, like the friends of the JoJo in each part, each represent like a distinct aspect of that Joestar's personality. And so like every little vignette of the different JoBros that you see throughout the season is like a little microcosm of one face of the relevant Joestar, right? And so I thought that's what you were talking about in terms of this being a character study of Velvet. What it sounds like you're talking about instead, though, is the idea that Velvet's arc and character development is very much like the organizing through line of the plot, by which I mean like all of the events in the game we make sense of in relation to like how Velvet is coming to terms with her own trauma and seeking to realize her revenge and understanding what that means and stuff like that. And all of the other characters are kind of playing supporting roles in that in one way or another. That I would be much more inclined to buy into. That makes sense. I was pushing against you because I feel like there are a lot of other JRPGs that fall into the camp of the JoJo's example that I was giving, and what I was talking about with like Tales of Symphonia and even Tales of Graces, where like there's one character that's sort of at the center of things such that every other character in the game or relevant plot point like represents an aspect of that character and their trauma. But it sounds like what you're talking about here with Tales of Berseria is slightly different than that. And definitely whether Velvet is insisting that the world bend to her will, or if the world's just curious to see that will happen. Her quest definitely seems to be the centralized one in Berseria's narrative so far. I'm with you there.
Rokurou, Kurogane.
And yes, I think it would be hard to beat Regal's raw power level with his hands across the series.
Crazy.
Sure, but they go through life with such crystal clear sense of purpose.
Even demons have things they're not willing to let go. Or do you think us mere animals, running around killing people left and right?
I mean, kind of.
Oh, I know.
That's what Artorias always said.
Demons still have a certain consciousness, but I look at those two and they seem passionate, like normal people.
Well, I've yet to meet a human so passionate he'd chop his own head off.
Do you have a purpose like they do?
I do, in fact. Ever since Artorias used my brother as a sacrifice.
Typical demon nonsense. The Abbey exists to protect the people. Yes, sometimes cold, painful decisions need to be made to protect the many, but they never stoop to human sacrifice. Besides, as Shepherd, Artorias will cleanse the world of...
If that's what you think, ask the precious Shepherd yourself. Ask him just what he did 3 years ago.
He wouldn't. He'd never...
Man, that conversation got me thinking again about what you said earlier this stream, Grail, in terms of the meaning of Artorias being Velvet's brother-in-law. I think, like, the more I'm thinking about that, the more that strikes me as kind of important and interesting. The idea that maybe part of what's so, like, heartbreakingly ironic and stokes the fire of revenge in Velvet about Artorias' action of killing Laphicet is you have these two concepts, right, of Velvet's real brother and her brother-in-law, and the brother is like the family she's born with that she loves and, you know, is native to her world and everything, and the brother-in-law is supposed to be the person who has only joined her family because of love, his love for a member of that family. And what is love if not a deeply felt emotion, right? And so for Artorias, who is only supposed to be related to Velvet through this vehicle of love, to intentionally do away with any trappings of emotion in his body and kill her actual family is like the most ironic and damning insult to like the role he was expected to play and the support he was supposed to be in her life and family unit. Maybe that's part of what makes it such a grotesque act.
Rokurou wants to slay his brother, even if it kills him. And Kurogane had his own head lopped off just to forge powerful swords. How do those two find it in themselves to go so far?
It's just how they are. They're demons. Not exactly normal.
Yeah, it's scary. But I also kinda admire it. But me, I don't have anything I'm that desperate to accomplish.
Not yet, you mean. In time, you'll find something.
You really think so?
Almost certainly. But don't feel you have to go and risk your life over it. You're not a demon, and you should stay that way. You deserve a normal life.
Okay.
But never mind. Just the foolish ramblings of a demon girl.
I also don't think that Laphicet is being fair to himself there. I mean, step back and think about even the events of this stream and the last one. It might not be something like achieving a certain goal with a clear end state, like defeating his brother or making an amazing sword, but he is clearly that obsessively passionate about protecting the people he takes to be his friends, between spiriting them away from Artorias in the void to the Earth Pulse and trying to step in to save Rokurou when Rokurou appeared to be on the brink of death against Kurogane. That was against Kurogane earlier this stream, right? So maybe he just doesn't conceive of that as a similar sort of passion yet, but I feel like we've already seen that color in him. Pink Moon Echo, it was so nice to see you again, my friend. I hope you enjoyed being back on the stream. It was a pleasure to have you. If you're interested in the article, I do hope you check it out. I'd love to hear what you think about it and talk about it if you want to next time, and hope to see you back. We're doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, plugging on still, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. Cheers. You have a great weekend and game on, okay? Well, that's why I was pushing back against you, Grail, because I think you are absolutely right in terms of Eleanor and Rokurou having clear senses in which they mirror or provide insight into particular aspects of Velvet. I am not confident that that is a party-wide or game-wide phenomenon. I think that's part of the unique color of their relationships with Velvet. And I think part of what is giving this game, at least so far, a different feel to me from some of these other sorts of stories is that there are lots of games in which you can recognize, like, oh, this character is the centerpiece, and all the other characters are giving us new ways to understand them, or showing us different parts of their character when it's decomposed and analyzed. This, I think, we just have sort of two cases of really interesting, unique relationships within the game in which that's the case, but not that the story is globally structured around Velvet's character in that way. But hey, it's early days still, so maybe just those faces of Aizen and Magilu and the others haven't come out yet. You never know until you get to the credits, and sometimes not even then. That's why we have New Game Plus.
Bad news! A group of praetors have left the docks and are headed this way! They said they were coming to purge Eleanor the traitor!
That is bad news.
Velvet, what do we do?
We take them head on. And you're fighting with us, Eleanor.
An order, I presume.
It is.
Duh.
Protect Laphicet and defeat the Exorcists.
All right. I understand.
Just remember, if we lose Eleanor, Laphicet will turn into a demon.
I haven't forgotten. But we need to pool all the resources we have. She needs us for her own ends. And we'll use that to
Yeah, it's a tough lot that girl's got, Grail.
Just don't push your luck too far, Velvet.
And so recently was she a noble, upstanding young exorcist. How quickly one falls when entering Velvet's dark orbit.
You never can have it all, can you? All right, I say let's see if we can play through this confrontation, and then we can wrap it for the evening. It'll probably take us right about to 8. At least the big view map makes it relatively easy to find your way. Oh my god, I forgot to change back. How do I do it? Is it like this? No, that's whatever, I'll do it after this fight. Oh, you mean like the idea that Artorias has already forsaken Eleanor at this point, Grail? And so this was just his plan to cast her out?
Nice. And this? It's disturbingly happy?
Maggie Lou, you're making it kind of obvious.
Yeah, I mean, we've only seen like those couple of brief interactions between them, Grail, but I would definitely buy that based on what little we know about Artorias and how he seems to feel about Eleanor.
Take a look at this.
Definitely didn't seem to be her biggest fan.
Wow.
And honestly, even with asking her that question, to your point about Eleanor echoing Velvet, whatever else we might say about Eleanor and Velvet's relationship, it definitely seems like Artorias sees at least a bit of Velvet in Eleanor and is kind of treating her through a similar lens. Norman Islands! Oh, and a new attachment, Swordsman's Eye Patch. These seas are said to be the Norman homeland. A handful of ancient Malic ruins still remain on these islands, where the capital of the world once stood. So, Normans, I wonder if this is a callback to Zisteria. I know these fellas.
Scout ship setting sail.
And around we go. Is this still the right way, right? Yeah. That's that lonely panacea bottle we don't have room for. No. Not right now. Oh, I forgot to change the character setup.
Eleanor, you should be ashamed
that's
of
all right.
yourself, cowering to demons.
Your collusion could spell disaster to the Abbey if left unchecked.
That's the deep lore, Grail. Artorias is just a really bitter bird watcher who doesn't appreciate that no one else appreciates birds. We solved it. We found the esoteric meaning of Tales of Berseria.
The only possible atonement is your death.
Oh, I mean, but we definitely have to be in control of Eleanor for the fight against all her friends. It's just too perfect.
You've betrayed the people and sullied Artorias' ideals.
No, that's not... Velvet, she's testing me. I know I have to fight. My mission calls for it. But any more of this will kill them.
Oh, come
Time
on.
for you to die and be
Killing your friends is always step one of getting under deep cover. If watching every season of 24 taught me anything.
I can't do it. I can't kill them.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah, it's very understatedly uncomfortable, isn't it, Grail?
There.
I don't feel
Now we're
quite
even,
at ease
Eleanor.
listening to this.
You've got new swords.
Oh, those are sick.
I like
take it.
I take it you're ready.
Yeah. All that's left is to kill Shigure.
Just one more box on that
With me as
checklist.
a witness.
I...
Keep on fighting like that, and you'll be killed. And if you get killed, Laphicet will lose his vessel.
I know that.
Velvet, wait.
3 fights.
You're not going to kill them.
My bet is in.
I'm just
10 gold.
right now. I've got new orders for you. Fight the exorcists, but make sure they don't die.
Oh. Velvet actually cares. Boy, Velvet, you really changed after the object of your revenge quest totally kicked your ass. You got soft, bro.
Guess that was
What
as far
happened to
as
you?
Eleanor could go.
I think so. Push her any further and she's bound to break.
Ever the virtuous exorcist.
That very virtue is what lets her be Laphicet's vessel. Besides, I can't help but admire her commitment. She's enduring total disgrace to accomplish her mission.
How uncommonly pleasant of you.
Pleasant folks don't use people the way we do.
Yeah, you've got that right.
Yeah, and would have eaten one of the exorcists in front of her to make a point. Show her who's boss.
Hey, Bienfu? I was wondering if I could talk to you about something that's on my mind. I figured it was just about the time that you and I had the talk, actually. I've seen it all, heard it all, and even tasted it all in my time as a Moloch. Ask me anything you want. Thanks. I was hoping you could let me borrow those books you were reading earlier, if that's okay. You mean how to talk a human female into becoming your vessel, and how to get the cuties? Hey, keep it down, keep it down. But you and Madame Eleanor
I believe one was actually called How to Physically Escalate with a Woman. I'm still not over that phrasing.
Like when we're alone together, things get so awkward. It's hard to talk with her, you know? That happens a lot with Molocheman vessels who are still new to the whole thing. I've been there. In that case, I've got an even better book for
Yeah, they're the group mom and the group dad. Every group has
you
them.
read a lot of books. I'm just an avid learner is all. Now let's see. Oh, here we go. Hot spring topics. Bearing your body and your soul. Being upfront and honest is always the best policy. I don't think we'll be bathing in any hot springs together. Do you have any...
Little did Laphicet know he was in the second act of a Tales game.
After bath party games, dropping your defenses and your towels. Why do you keep trying to get us...
Jesus Christ, Ben. That's just not right.
More awkward. Picky. Tell you what, you can just look at my collection and pick whatever sounds good. Love hacking.
It is pretty funny.
And loving hard. Diary of a diary thief. Hands speak louder than words. All classics.
I don't think it gets me going as much as all the wordplay in Zisteria, but it's still pretty funny.
To be young again. You ever think maybe things would have been easier if you never read these books? Reading the mood. Knowing what to say and how to say it. That one's a winner.
That one's written in the ancient tongue, if you know what I mean.
We are. Laphicet's been worried about that awkward distance between you two, and he came to me for some advice.
I was gonna say, yeah, this just reminds me of what a slut attack was for Lila
What to do about it.
as soon as they got reacquainted.
Let's go.
Oh, okay.
Knowing what to say and how to say it. I don't think this will help either.
Oh, Laphicet. Talk to group dad. Eisen will help. Well, at least they're alive. That's something. That's the right way, right? Yeah. Leave us alone. I just want to get us out of the cave network. Please. Oh, I should reorganize my party too before we get into more hijinks.
I'm in this 100%.
I feel like we have to swap our boy Rokurou in after he got those fancy new Korogane daggers. Okay. This way, I think. I'd just love for us to see the light of day before we call it a day. Okay, that looks positive. Oh, do you think so, Grail? Is our exit of the cave not imminent? I thought we were close to getting out of here. I figured that would be a good place to wrap it. Son of a bitch. No, it does just go on and on, doesn't it? Wow, yeah, it wraps around. Okay, I guess you're right. Well, that's okay. We can kick off here on Monday. I feel like the confrontation with the Exorcists and Rokurou getting his blades is as nice a place as any. Boy, that's nuts that they still give you so much cave between that and actually getting out. Well, you called it with a dungeon. Oh, okay, so we have a whole other boss. All right. Yeah, I think that's the appropriate time then to be respectful of everyone's time on a fine Friday night. But yes, Grail, my friend, as always, it's a pleasure to have you back, hanging out, talking everything Tales. Pink Moon Neko, was delighted to see you too. Hope to see you again next week. It's always great hanging out with you and getting your voice added to the mix. Dear other friends who come through, always feel free to contribute, whether you're a Tales vet or just starting out on Love Thinking About Video Game Stories. It's a pleasure to have a lot of voices in the real-life JRPG party mix. And a shout-out to all of you for everything Tales of Praxis. I mean, it's tremendously fun to do these streams, and definitely wouldn't be able to do the sorts of analyses that I'm publishing on either without these great conversations that we're having. So really, it all feeds together. I really hope you enjoy the new article about Regal and Tales of Symphonia and everything that goes with it. Let me know what you think. Love to chat more about it next week if that's something that interests you all. Got plenty of more analyses to do. Still thinking that Tales of Destiny and Vesperia one is next, but so many new ideas in the hopper. We touched on so many things even in this stream. It's just a bottomless well of great content and ideas and concepts to plumb in any one of these games, let alone the entire series. There you go. All right, you have homework, Grail. No, I'm kidding, but I'm glad you're enjoying it, especially since you're such a regular to the stream and we've been spending so much time chatting together. It would be fun to chat about my written work with you. That's all she wrote for now. It's fun to see how the second act is shaping up with some new characters, some new motivations, and a lot of the background of characters like Rokurou starting to open up so we can see them in new lights as they're starting to evolve, as we've already seen with Velvet and Laphicet, really everyone. Magilu also sort of slowly and gently opening up as we go along. So plenty more to come from Berseria, I have no doubt, and then we can get thinking on what comes next after that. But I'll look forward to seeing everyone same time on Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Be here, be square. Game well in the meantime. Enjoy a good video game story this weekend. You've earned it. Tell me about it on Monday. Maybe even think about the meaning or impact that a game you've played in the recent past has had on you. There's never a bad time for that, but weekends are especially great for it. Cheers, my friends. Grail, cheers to you especially for seeing it all the way through. That's always a pleasure. And we'll be back before you know it. I'm Aaron Suduko, your host. See you again soon. Cheers.